Chapter 411. The sword son of the Li clan, Li Ran, had his throat slit by a single sword. The sword son of the heavenly sword sect, Jian Feng, walked down the platform, conceding. The sudden turn of events caused the spectators to feel a little surreal. Today, the Li clan and the heavenly sword sect had reached an agreement. The final battle should have been between Li Ran and Jian Feng. Their battle would determine the ownership of the sword range. But the Zong clan, which was previously disregarded, produced a new generation of sword sons. Using the most domineering manner, he obtained first place in the third battle. Not only that, from the start to the end, he only unleashed a single sword strike. With a single sword strike, he obtained first place, seizing control of the sword range. This victory meant that the sword range would belong to the Zong clan for the next 10 years. The Li clan, Zong clan and Heavenly Sword sect, each side won one. But the Zong clan was the final victor in the battle between Heavenly Dipper sovereigns. In the end, scheming against oneself. Zong Yi faintly spoke, his words causing many to sigh as they silently nodded in their hearts. If the Heavenly Sword sect and the Li clan didn't reach an agreement and fought for victory in the first two battles, maybe one of them would have a chance to win 2 consecutive battles. But the other two would have no chance at all. However, they were so confident in their own sword sons. Hence, they ignored the Zong clan, wanting to eliminate the Zong clan first. But in the end, they helped the Zong clan. Such an ending, nobody would have thought of it. Qin Wentian sheathed his sword as he slowly walked back to the Zong clan's crowd. The gazes of the Zong clan's members were all filled with fanaticism as they stared at him. This was the sword son of the Zong clan. At this moment, it was as though Qin Wentian's surname wasn't even mentioned by them. He had brought glory to the Zong clan. His words were truly beautiful. In front of everyone in the Sword Reverence City, he had ruthlessly slapped the faces of the Li clan and Heavenly Sword sect. However, Qin Wentian was extremely quiet, as though nothing had happened at all. To him, this battle wasn't too challenging. Even if he won, there was nothing to be proud of. He could just leave the rest to Zong Yi, there was no need for him to worry. But after he gained control of the sword range, he could freely enter and exit the sword range and properly sense the sword intent of the demon sword. The second level of his mandate of swords was comprehended from the demon sword. Isn't it time for the Heavenly Sword sect to retreat? Zong Yi calmly spoke. According to the rules, his Zong clan was the victor. In that case, for the next 10 years, his Zong clan would be in control of the sword range. The experts from the Heavenly Sword sect naturally had to retreat. The sect leader of the Heavenly Sword sect, Jian Wuyo, calmly stared at Zong Yi as a cold smile appeared on his face. This scene caused Zong Yi to frown. Could it be that the Heavenly Sword sect was going to go back on their words? The 3 major powers of the Sword Reverence City had maintained a balance of power for far too many years. None of them dared to say that they would be able to devour the other 2. And because the 3 powers were still divided into different levels, 2 of them wouldn't join forces to annihilate the other 2. Once the third party was annihilated, the weaker of the 2 remaining powers would be in danger. It was precisely because of this that this balance had always been maintained. Brother Zong, there are some things I have to remind you. If it was in the past, if our Zong clan won, the sword range would belong to us for the next 10 years. But today's battle is merely a formality. As for the control of the sword range, Brother Zong can forget about it. Jian Wuyo faintly spoke, his words causing expressions of interest to appear on the faces of the spectators. If the Heavenly Sword sect violated the rules, it would undoubtedly be a provocation to the Zong clan. Sect leader Jian, do you think that the Heavenly Sword sect is so powerful that they can disregard the existence of my Zong clan? Zong Yi's voice was filled with coldness, yet Jian Wuyo acted as though he didn't hear it. He coldly laughed, it's not my Heavenly Sword sect. There are others who wish to mine the sword range. These people are the esteemed guests of my Heavenly Sword sect. I'm advising you now because it's for the good of Brother Zong. Is that so? In that case, I, Zong, would like to ask, who is the one who wishes to mine the sword range? Zong Yi stared at Jian Wuyo calmly. Me. At this moment, a person behind Jian Wuyo spoke. Before this person had been standing at the very back with his eyes closed in meditation, completely unremarkable. Only now did the spectators discover that this person's dressing was completely different from those from the Heavenly Sword sect. He was clad in luxurious golden robes, and an intense sense of arrogance could be seen on his face. His entire person exuded a sense of sharpness. This person walked out and inclined his head slightly, staring at Zong Yi as he casually stated, there was originally no need for this battle. It's just that Jian Wuyo wanted to follow the rules set by the previous generations, so I allowed it. But no matter what the ending is, for the next 10 years, the rights to mine the sword range shall still belong to the Heavenly Sword sect. Outsiders are not allowed to interfere. The tone of this luxuriously dressed middle-aged man was filled with arrogance, leaving no room for doubt. The other two major powers of the Sword Reverence City, regardless of the Zong clan or the Li clan, had no qualifications to doubt him. If that's the case, why do you still want to follow the rules set by the previous generations? How laughable. Zong Yi faintly spoke. Dare I ask who you are? You don't need to know. The middle-aged man continued, as for the battle earlier, it was Jian Wuyo who insisted on sending out the members of his Heavenly Sword sect. If I wanted to lead the battle, it would be a piece of cake. How would you, Sword Son, have a chance to win? Is that so? Zong Yi countered with a question. Since you put it this way, I, Zong, would like to see for myself how the first-level Heavenly Dipper sovereigns you sent would be able to defeat the Sword Son of my Zong clan. If my Zong clan loses this battle, I will immediately retreat without saying a single word. Not only that, my Zong clan will gift you with 100,000 fourth-layer Yuan meteor stones. How about it? MHM. Upon hearing Zong Yi's words, the countenances of the crowd stiffened. What a strong self-confidence, Zong Yi didn't even inquire about the identity of his opponent, yet he dared to act so domineeringly. Most probably, he was from a major power that came from outside. But since the middle-aged man said that he could easily lead the battle, Zong Yi wanted to see who would be able to defeat the Sword Son of the Zong clan. Those from the Zong clan were all stunned. Zong Yi was extremely confident in his Sword Son, Qin Wen. If they knew that their Sword Son was the top ranker in the Heavenly Fate rankings, and had dominated the demon-level geniuses of Grand Xia when he was at the 9th level of Yuanfu, they would also be as confident as Zong Yi. Since he was invincible at the same level as him during the Heavenly Fate rankings, who would be able to defeat him now that he was at the first level of Heavenly Dipper? The middle-aged man furrowed his brows. He was the one who spoke first, yet Zong Yi made use of his words to issue a challenge. Not only that, Zong Yi also offered such a huge bet. If he didn't accept it, it would undoubtedly be akin to smacking his own face. 100,000 yuan meteor stones, what a huge bet. The middle-aged man coldly laughed. Since this is the case, I will accept it. What would happen if your subordinate is defeated? Zong Yi didn't show any signs of anger, he was extremely calm. Defeated? The middle-aged man had never imagined that in the Sword Reverence City, with a cultivation base at the first level of Heavenly Dipper, there would be someone who could defeat the heavens chosen of the Wang clan, Wang Ju. Although Wang Ju was defeated in the Heavenly Fate rankings and had encountered many demon-level geniuses, it was still undeniable that he was extremely powerful. After stepping into Heavenly Dipper, he was still a target to be nurtured. How could there be anyone in the Sword Reverence City who could be his opponent? If the middle-aged man had gone to the ancient kingdom of Grand Xia to witness the ranking battle of the Heavenly Fate rankings, he wouldn't have thought this way. Right now, the situation in Grand Xia was extremely chaotic. The Venerate Heavens sect had spread word that the fate of Grand Xia was changing. Hence, the Wang clan had no choice but to make preparations. Hence, they came to the Sword Reverence City, which was located extremely far away from the war continent. They were prepared to excavate the sword range, and at the same time, try their best to see if they could bring the mysterious demon sword away with them. If my subordinate is defeated, he will no longer touch the sword range and will leave immediately. Also, gift me 100,000 yuan meteor stones. The middle-aged man coldly laughed. 100,000 yuan meteor stones was definitely an astronomical sum. Since the other party wanted to gift it to him, why wouldn't he accept it? Not only that, there was no need for him to hand over the 100,000 yuan meteor stones to the Wang clan. This was precisely the reason why he agreed to this battle. If not, he wouldn't even bother with Zhong Yi. Immediately head to the Heavenly Sword sect and summon the descendants of my Wang clan. We will excavate the sword range in advance. The middle-aged man faintly spoke. Jian Wuyo nodded his head and turned his head to instruct one of his subordinates. Momentarily, the silhouette of that person soared through the air, instantly flying towards the direction of the Sword Reverence City. Upon seeing this scene, the spectators didn't depart but chose to wait patiently instead. They also wanted to see who this imposing middle-aged man was exactly. To think that even the Heavenly Sword sect would bow their heads in submission to him. Those from the Zhong clan were all extremely nervous. 100,000 fourth-layer yuan meteor stones. This sum was simply too terrifying. Clan Lord Zhong Yi had actually placed so much pressure on the Sword Sun. How could they not feel a sense of suffocation in their hearts? But if their Zhong clan retreated just like that, where would they put their face? For the sake of face, for the sake of the sword range, Clan Lord Zhong Yi would make such a decision. Now, it all depended on Qin Wentian. The spectators waited for a period of time. Above the precipice, whistling sounds could be heard as a terrifyingly sharp intent gushed over. Inclining their heads, they saw another group of terrifying experts descending upon the precipice. These people weren't all riding on flying swords. They were all using various innate techniques and stopped in the air. Their sharp gazes turned downwards, causing the hearts of the spectators to tremble in fear. These young men all have gazes as sharp as blades. They are all extraordinary characters, and any one of them exudes a fearsome aura, giving off a feeling of invincibility. As for those elders, just a single glance from them is enough to pierce through the minds of the spectators. The hearts of the spectators pounded as they descended. The middle-aged man in luxurious robes had an arrogant smile on his face as he stared at Zhong Yi. Daring to gamble with my Wang clan? Zhong clan of the Sword Reverence City, I truly admire your courage. Wang clan. Expressions of contemplation appeared on the faces of the spectators. Abruptly, a terrifying light gleamed in their eyes. The Sword Reverence City was located in the central region of Grand Xia, and the closest city to it was none other than the War Continent. Claiming to be from the Wang clan, such an arrogant power, it could only be the Wang clan of the War Continent. A transcendent power. Not only that, it's one of the 9 strongest transcendent powers. The hearts of the spectators trembled. No wonder this man was so arrogant. If the Zhong clan wanted to gamble with the Wang clan, how could they not lose? Those from the Zhong clan felt their hearts trembling as their countenances turned pale. They had all thought that a powerful power had arrived, but they didn't expect that this power would be the Wang clan of the War Continent. Chapter 412. A year ago, in Ginku, in the ancient kingdom of Grand Xia, although no one from the Sword Reverence City participated in the ranking battle, they had all heard of the results of the battle. A Heaven's Chosen, Qin Wentian, appeared out of nowhere, defeating the demon-level genius of the great Solar Chen clan, Chen Wang, as well as the Dark Horse Si Qiong. He even killed the Heaven's Chosen of the Pill Emperor Hall, Zhan Chen, becoming the top ranker of the Heavenly Fate rankings. Qin Wentian used his fame as the top ranker of the Heavenly Fate rankings to tell the world that he and Mo Qingcheng were a match made in heaven. This year's Heavenly Fate rankings battle was known as the strongest in 1,000 years. Wang Ju, who was once ranked number 6 on the Heavenly Fate ranking, didn't even manage to enter the top 10. However, it couldn't be said that Wang Ju's strength was lacking, it was just that the Heavenly Fate rankings this time around were simply too strong. After the Heavenly Fate rankings, those ranked at the top all broke through to Heavenly Dipper. Wang Ju of the War Continent was no exception. As a Heaven's Chosen of the Wang clan, one could very well imagine how strong his combat prowess was. If he were to enter the Sword Reverend City in the future, he would definitely be able to dominate everyone. Moreover, what kind of power is the Wang family of War State? Even if Wang Ju doesn't come out, the other Heavenly Dipper realm first stage people will not be weak. And at this moment, outside the Sword Reverend City, the sect leader of the Zong clan, Zong Yi, actually issued a wager of 100,000 yuan meteor stones to the Wang clan. Wang Ju. The middle-aged man lifted his head and looked at a young man in the air. Wang Ju, it's really Wang Ju. The countenances of those from the Zong clan all turned incredibly unsightly to behold. As for those from the Heavenly Sword sect, they were still laughing coldly. The sword son of the Zong clan from the Sword Reverend City actually issued a bet of 100,000 yuan meteor stones to our Wang clan. You, go and tell him, there's always a sky beyond a sky. The middle-aged man in luxurious robes spoke. Wang Ju's countenance was calm. He heard that there were demon swords in this place and thus decided to come here to take a look. He wanted to see if there was anything special about this sword range. Qin Wentian would always remember his defeat in the Heavenly Fate rankings, constantly reminding himself that he had to grow stronger. And now, there was actually a major power challenging him in the Sword Reverend City. This caused a cold light to flicker in his eyes. Since Wang Ju is here, I think Brother Zong should just give up the sword range and hand over the Yuan meteor stones before leaving this place. Zong Yi's countenance was as calm as ever. He wasn't worried about the outcome of this battle. What he was thinking in his heart was that his opponent was someone from the Wang clan of the War Continent. Even if they won this battle, would they give up on the sword range? I'm afraid it'll be difficult. Looking at the Wang family's current situation, it seemed like they wouldn't rest until they obtained the sword range. I, Zong, am willing to take a step back and forget about this battle. My Zong clan will work together with the Wang clan to mine the sword range. In addition, I will pay half of the promised Yuan meteor stones. How about it? Zong Yi contemplated for a moment before he spoke, taking a step back. However, the other party wouldn't think this way. The middle-aged man coldly laughed. Now that you know you're no match for me, you want to regret your decision. How laughable. Where is the sword son of the Zong clan? Qin Wentian was currently among the crowd of people from the Zong clan. He left the ancient kingdom and came to the Sword Reverend City because he didn't want to be discovered. But who would have thought that he would actually encounter people from the Zong clan here? However, at this moment, since they had already met, there was no point in running away. Only to see his silhouette slowly walking out, and in an instant, he landed on the stone platform. Staring at his back view, the members of the Zong clan couldn't help but sigh silently. Although Qin Wentian had defeated the Sword Son of the Li clan and the Heavenly Sword sect, it would be extremely difficult for him to defeat Wang Ju of the Wang clan. At this moment, Qin Wentian stood with his hands clasped behind his back as he slowly inclined his head, staring at Wang Ju. Instantly, Wang Ju's countenance flickered with a terrifying sharpness, while Wang Xiao, who was standing behind him, radiated a sharpness as well. It's him. Wang Ju had never imagined that he would encounter Qin Wentian here. The Sword Son of the Sword Reverend City. This identity was truly well disguised. A few months ago, Ouyang Guangsheng had returned to the Ouyang aristocrat clan, while Bai Qing had returned to the Mystic Moon sect. This incident had shocked the various transcendent powers. The Great Solar Qin clan and the other transcendent powers of Ginkgo were still encircling the ancient kingdom, yet Qin Wentian had actually left. This was akin to a slap to the face of the Great Solar Qin clan. Because of this, the great Solar Chen clan was infuriated and had even issued an order to capture Qin Wentian. How would they be able to find him? Wang Ju stood at his original location, not stepping onto the platform. Although he was extremely confident in his own strength, he had to admit that he didn't have the ability to win against someone who had once fought in the Heavenly Fate rankings. The battle between Qin Wentian, Chen Wang and Si Qiong was still vivid in his mind. Qin Wentian's combat prowess had no weaknesses. Now that he had stepped into Heavenly Dipper, how strong would he be? Most probably, the astral war beasts he could summon would be able to dominate opponents at the same level as him. Wang Ju. The middle-aged man inclined his head, calling out to Wang Ju who was still standing in the air. Those from the Heavenly Sword sect and Zong clan were all bewildered. This Wang Ju was staring at Qin Wentian, yet he didn't move an inch. In his eyes, an intense fear could be seen. A mere Zong clan from the Sword Reverence City, what qualifications do they have to negotiate with my Wang clan? Let alone a battle. Uncle, tell them to scram. Wang Xiao didn't want Wang Ju to feel awkward as he spoke. The middle-aged man frowned, he didn't understand. 100,000 yuan meteor stones were delivered to my doorstep, how can I refuse? That's right, this Zong clan doesn't know the immensity of the heavens and earth. Honorable nephew Wang Ju should teach brother Zong how to conduct himself. Jian Wuyo coldly laughed. However, he only saw Wang Ju coldly glancing at him, causing a strange expression to appear on Jian Wuyo's face. There seemed to be something wrong with Wang Ju's gaze. Shifting his gaze over, Wang Ju stared at Qin Wentian as he coldly stated, the Chen clan is searching for you everywhere. What would they do if they knew you were here? MHM. Upon hearing Wang Ju's words, the eyes of the crowd froze. Wang Ju was actually acquainted with the sword son of the Zong clan. Fight, or not? Qin Wentian inclined his head, his gaze as sharp as a sword, landing on Wang Ju. That gaze caused Wang Ju's heart to tremble. Back then, during the ranking battle, on the Vermilion Bird Arena platform, this was the same gaze he used to kill Zhan Chen, defeat Chen Wang and Si Qiong. Wang Ju didn't reply. The middle-aged man's brows furrowed even more tightly as he asked, who is this person? Qin Wentian. Wang Ju stared at Qin Wentian as he spat out these three words. Momentarily, the middle-aged man's countenance stiffened as a terrifying light flickered in his eyes. Number 1 on the Heavenly Fate rankings, Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian. The countenances of those from the Zong clan stiffened. Could it be that the Sword Son's real name wasn't Qin Wentian? But Qin Wentian? Some of the more knowledgeable ones involuntarily exclaimed, last year, the one who defeated Chen Wang from the ancient kingdom of Grand Xia, the top ranker of the Heavenly Fate rankings, Qin Wentian. As the sound of this voice faded, the crowd inclined their heads and stared at the silhouette of the young man standing on the stone platform. Their countenances stiffened. This Qin Wentian, was that Qin Wentian? He was the top ranker of the Heavenly Fate rankings. And when they glanced at Wang Ju, he didn't even dare to take half a step forward upon seeing Qin Wentian. Those from the Li clan and Heavenly Sword sect were all dumbfounded. No wonder Zhong Yi was so confident, he was actually Qin Wentian. This man had once dominated the Heavenly Fate rankings with no opponents at the same cultivation level as him. The gazes of those from the Zong clan burned with passion as they stared at the back view of Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian merely stood there casually, yet the heavens chosen from the Wang clan of the War Continent didn't even dare to take a single step forward. Even if you were a heavens chosen, you didn't even have the courage to fight. Because, if you fought, you would definitely lose. The top ranker of the Heavenly Fate rankings has actually been in my Zong clan all this time, and I actually didn't know him. A young man from the Zong clan sighed, his countenance filled with excitement. He had never imagined that he would be able to come into contact with the legendary top ranker of the Heavenly Fate rankings. At this moment, Qin Wentian's silhouette seemed to grow taller and taller. Just by standing there, he was akin to a legend. He was the same as Hua Taishu back then, standing at the peak of Yuanfu, the pinnacle of Grand Xiao. This person actually appeared in the Zong clan, becoming the sword son of the Zong clan. You already knew. The middle-aged man stared at Zong Yi, his countenance cold. I'm only asking you this. Does the bet still count? Zong Yi didn't reply. Since Qin Wentian had already stepped out, it didn't matter if he replied or not. The him now, instead, was domineering as he stared at the middle-aged man. If I say it counts, do you dare to accept it? The middle-aged man stared at Zong Yi. Accept. Zong Yi calmly stared back at the middle-aged man. Are you sure? The middle-aged man asked again. His tone had already turned exceptionally cold. I'm sure. Zong Yi's countenance was as calm as ever as he calmly replied. At this instant, the middle-aged man laughed as he waved his hands. Very well, since you accept it, I shall gift this sword range to you. In addition, I will send someone to the war continent to prepare 100,000 yuan meteor stones. Just you wait. As the sound of his voice faded, the silhouette of the middle-aged man soared through the air, directly departing the area. Those from the Wang clan of the war continent all followed suit. Jian Wuyo coldly laughed as he glanced at Zong Yi. Brother Zong's decision this time around isn't very wise. Let's hope that your Zong clan will be able to obtain this sword range. As the sound of his voice faded, those from the Heavenly Sword sect also departed. Those from the Li clan all had expressions of schadenfreude on their faces. Seems like there would be a good show to watch in the Sword Reverence City. Very swiftly, only those from the Zong clan remained at the bottom of the precipice. The Heavenly Sword sect had actually evacuated the guards of the sword range. However, they all understood that this was only temporary. How could the transcendent power, the Wang clan, give up so easily? Leaving aside the 100,000 yuan meteor stones and the sword range, even the safety of their Zong clan would have to be reconsidered. Qin Wentian furrowed his brows. The Wang clan didn't dare to make a move because they weren't strong enough. Not only that, the Wang clan knew that he had the divine steel in his possession during the heavenly fate rankings. With the divine steel in his hands, the Wang clan would definitely feel trepidation in their hearts. After all, that was the complete divine steel. However, the Wang clan didn't say a single word about it and directly departed. Naturally, they were heading to the war continent to mobilize their experts. They couldn't stay in the Sword Reverence City any longer. Qin Wentian also didn't expect that he would encounter the Wang clan here. Turning back, Qin Wentian walked to the side of Zong Yi as he spoke. I've implicated Uncle Zong. Since I've already made up my mind, why should I be afraid of the consequences? Zong Yi lightly spoke, patting Qin Wentian on his shoulder as he smiled. My blood is still boiling. Qin Wentian felt his heart heating up as a smile appeared on his face. After which, Zong Yi turned and stared at the members of the Zong clan as he commanded, immediately return to the clan and hold a clan meeting. Since they had already thought of the consequences, the Zong clan naturally had to make the necessary preparations. Everyone nodded their heads as they cast a deep glance at Qin Wentian. After which, their silhouettes flickered as they departed the area. That very day, the youths of the Zong clan, as well as the weaker females and children, all left the Sword Reverence City through the teleportation array. Only then did the members of the Zong clan discover that there was actually a teleportation array hidden in the Zong clan. A crafty rabbit has 3 burrows. The Zong clan was one of the hidden branches of the Azure Emperor. They would naturally leave a path of retreat for themselves. This teleportation array was something they had paid a huge price to hire a grandmaster who was proficient in spatial divine inscriptions to create. In a single day, the Zong clan left behind those who had the strength to fight. At the same time, they destroyed the teleportation array, cutting off any path of escape. After which, they set off for the sword range during the night. Evidently, the Zong clan was prepared to give up on the Sword Reverence City. Their ruthless methods caused Qin Wentian to sigh in admiration at Zhong Yi's boldness. Chapter 413. Night, at the bottom of the precipice, the sword range was completely silent. A group of silhouettes stared at the demon sword embedded in the center of the sword range. It was unknown when someone would be able to pull the demon sword out. Let's begin. Directly destroy the sword range and search for the sword. Zhong Yi faintly spoke. He was an extremely decisive person and had absolute authority in the Zhong clan. Hence, when Qin Wentian sought him out, he only hesitated for a moment before agreeing to Qin Wentian's request. Joining the Azure Emperor token, he hoped that there would be a day when he would stand at the peak of Grand Xiao. The clan leader of the Zhong clan, Zhong Yi, was far more decisive compared to the elders of the White Deer Institute. Right now, since they couldn't stay in the Sword Reverend City any longer, and the Heavenly Sword sect had allied with the Wang clan of the War Continent, they might act against their Zhong clan. In that case, they had to excavate the sword range in the shortest time possible, and there was no need for them to leave a path of retreat behind. The ancient swords unearthed in the sword range were all born from the demon sword. Once these ancient swords were formed, they would emit a sword intent. In the past, because of long-term benefits, the three transcendent powers wouldn't destroy the sword range, and would only excavate the ancient swords that were already formed. But this time was different. Since the Wang clan and Heavenly Sword sect were forcing him, what else did he need to worry about? Those from the Zhong clan nodded their heads and instantly entered the sword range. They took out their ancient swords and began to destroy the sword range, searching for the ancient swords. Zhong Yi and Qin Wentian remained at their original location. Qin Wentian spoke, "Uncle Zhong, I'm afraid that the Heavenly Sword sect would also try to guess your intentions. If the Wang clan wants to make a move against the Zhong clan, they would definitely pay attention to our movements." "I know." Zhong Yi nodded his head. "That's why I retreated the members of the Zhong clan within a day and used the speed of lightning to search for the ancient swords. I only need a single night's time. If they really want to kill their way here, we can only face them head-on. Seems like Uncle Zhong has already considered the various scenarios." Qin Wentian nodded his head. "I'll go take a look at the demon sword. Wentian, this sword is too demonic. You must be extremely careful. Don't touch it with your body, and don't let your blood flow onto it," Zhong Yi reminded. He and Qin Wentian advanced together, gradually nearing the 1,000-meter-tall gigantic demon sword. A terrifying sword will permeated the surroundings. In Qin Wentian's perception, there were sounds of swords ringing out. The sounds were like the mournful cries of demons, as though there were ancient swords shooting towards him. He immediately closed his six senses, not sensing the sword sounds. If he got any closer, he wouldn't be able to withstand the nothingness of the sword sounds. Finally, Zhong Yi and Qin Wentian stood on top of the demon sword. Staring at the gigantic sword hilt, Qin Wentian spoke, "Uncle Zhong, this sword has existed for so many years, everyone in the War Continent knows of its existence. Is it true that no one has ever managed to pull it out? Don't touch the sword. Go ahead and try." Zhong Yi spoke. Qin Wentian nodded his head as he landed on top of the sword hilt. Wrapping his hands around the sword hilt, he abruptly exerted his strength. However, the demon sword simply stood there, not moving an inch. "The weight of this sword is beyond your imagination. My Zhong clan, Li clan, and Heavenly Sword sect have all tried before, but no one has been able to pull it out." Zhong Yi laughed. "Not only that, the demonic aspect of this sword is that if you touch the sword hilt, it will drink your blood. Hence, don't touch the sword hilt, and don't let your blood flow onto it." Qin Wentian only tried for a moment before he gave up, distancing himself from the demon sword. Since Zhong Yi said this, there was no way he would be able to move the demon sword. At this moment, Zhong Yi's brows twitched as he sighed, "I didn't expect them to make their move so quickly. I'm really unwilling to accept this. Qin Wenqian's countenance stiffened. After which, Zhong Yi spoke, "Members of the Zhong clan, gather." As the sound of his voice faded, the members of the Zhong clan all gave up on mining the sword range. Their silhouettes flickered as they gathered at Zhong Yi's location. Zhong Yi stepped out as he soared up into the air. An instant later, the sound of swords whistling could be heard as silhouettes appeared on both sides of the precipice. Upon seeing the appearance of these people, the countenances of those from the Zhong clan grew exceedingly unsightly. "The rights to mine the sword range belongs to my Zhong clan. I wonder why the Heavenly Sword sect and Li clan came here at the same time." Zhong Yi coldly spoke. So it turned out that these two groups of people were actually from the Heavenly Sword sect and the Li clan. They came here together, but the Wang clan from the War Continent didn't appear. Li Jintian glanced at the sword range below as he coldly spoke, "The Zhong clan isn't planning to mine the sword range, but rather, they want to sever the sword range." Zhong Yi's countenance turned cold. "The Li clan wants to participate in this matter as well." If the Heavenly Sword sect and Li clan joined forces, there could only be one reason. The Wang clan from the War Continent must have made a promise to the Li clan. If not, how would the Li clan dare to act against the Zhong clan? Zhong Yi had to first consider if he would become the next target. Qin Wenqian sighed. The Wang clan from the War Continent was extremely decisive. They didn't even give the Zhong clan a single day's time, and directly contacted the Heavenly Sword sect and Li clan to monitor the movements of the Zhong clan. As for why the Wang clan hadn't arrived yet, it was most probably because they feared the power of the divine steel. Hence, they sent the Heavenly Sword sect and Li clan to probe the waters first. If he could still unleash the might of the divine steel like before, the Wang clan would have waited for an opportunity to strike. Sadly, the ancient will of the divine steel wasn't that strong, and after the battle back then, it was even weaker. Most probably, it was useless now. Those from the Zhong clan can leave, but the sword son of the Zhong clan has to stay behind. The Heavenly Sword sect's Jian Wuo spoke, his words causing Qin Wenqian's eyes to flicker. The Heavenly Sword sect and Li clan directly wanted him. There was no doubt that this was an order from the Wang clan. Zhong Yi coldly stared at Jian Wuo as he icily stated, "As long as the Zhong clan exists, so does the sword son." Zhong Yi, the Zhong clan has existed for so many years. Why must you fall into a state of eternal damnation because of a single person? I know that the elites of your Zhong clan have all been mobilized, so my Heavenly Sword sect and Li clan will do the same as well. In addition, I'm afraid that there are also people from my side who have arrived in your clan. You better consider this carefully. Jian Wuo's aura was ice cold as he threatened. Unless it was absolutely necessary, he wasn't willing to start a war. If they fought, the Zhong clan would be annihilated, but the Heavenly Sword sect and Li clan would also suffer heavy losses. This wasn't the ending he wanted. After all, although they had a grudge with the Zhong clan, it hadn't reached the point where their entire clan would be annihilated. It was just that the Wang clan was too ruthless. After issuing the order, they actually didn't show themselves and only agreed to act at the most crucial moment. Zhong Yi, you don't even think for yourself or for the Zhong clan. For the sake of a single sword son, you're willing to cause the annihilation of your entire clan. Is it worth it? Li Jintian also spoke. Zhong Yi coldly laughed. Are you all really willing to pay such a heavy price just because of a single command from the Wang clan? Even if my Zhong clan is annihilated, how great would the losses of the Heavenly Sword sect and Li clan be? After that, even if the Wang clan excavates the sword range, what does that have to do with you all? I'm afraid it won't be long before the Sword Reverend City and our three major powers cease to exist. Have you all thought this through clearly? Zhong Yi's voice was concealed within the sword qi, piercing into the hearts of those who heard it. His words truly pierced the hearts of those from the two clans. In truth, the three major powers didn't really wish for a war to break out. This young man must stay behind no matter what. Zhong Yi, if you refuse to give up, we can only fight. The Heavenly Sword Sect's Jian Wuyo spoke. He didn't have Zhong Yi's boldness, it was impossible for him to abandon the Heavenly Sword Sect in the Sword Reverend City. Zhong Yi turned and stared at the crowd as he calmly spoke, tonight's matter is something I, Zhong Yi, didn't expect, and might implicate the members of my Zhong clan. However, when have the members of my Zhong clan ever feared a battle? I, Zhong Yi, vow that if I have to leave, I will be the last one to leave. Now, retreat and protect the Sword Sun. As the sound of his voice faded, over 1,000 experts directly soared up into the air as a terrifying sword intent permeated the air, causing people to feel stifled. Kill. The experts from the Heavenly Sword Sect and Li clan decisively gave the order upon seeing this scene. Since things had already come to this, they could only fight. Powerful sword lights instantly illuminated the darkness of the night. Regardless of the Heavenly Sword Sect or the Li clan, over 1,000 elites were gathered here. When the sword lights slashed out at the same time, it was unknown how terrifying the might behind it was. At this moment, as the members of the Zhong clan soared up into the air, they actually gathered in an orderly fashion. If one were to carefully count them, they would discover that the 81 members of the Zhong clan actually formed a formation that resembled an ancient sword formation. Sword formation. Upon seeing this scene, the crowd instantly understood that this was a sword formation. The members of the sword formation all started revolving as their astral souls and astral novas erupted forth at the same time. Abruptly, over 10 beams of light slashed down from the sky, as though wanting to steal the light of the heavens and earth. In an instant, the silhouettes of the Zhong clan were directly slashed apart as terrifying sword scars appeared in the air. The Zhong clan's coalescent sword formation uses the doyens as the axes, gathering the strength of the 81 of them into a single sword strike. When it's unleashed, the might it exudes is truly terrifying. Those from the Heavenly Sword Sect and Li clan instantly thought of the ultimate sword formation of the Zhong clan. In the past, they had only heard of it in the legends. Today, this was the first time they had seen the Zhong clan using it. 9 swords linking the heavens. Jian Wuyo roared. His left hand straightened in the air while his right hand rested on his left wrist. Abruptly, a boundless sword might gushed forth from him as the heavenly astral sword pierced through the air. Behind him, 8 silhouettes appeared. These were none other than the 9 heavenly swords of the Heavenly Sword Sect. Gather. Jian Wuyo pointed his finger at the dome of the heavens as the humming of swords filled the air. The other 8 also did the same. 9 swords linked the heavens as a formless sword might slash downwards. The 9 majestic ancient swords abruptly slashed towards one of the sword formations of the Zhong clan. On the other hand, the Li clan was fighting amongst themselves. Although their individual combat prowess didn't lose out to those from the Zhong clan, under the power of the sword formation, the Zhong clan suffered heavy losses in an instant. The reason why the 3 powers hadn't shredded all pretense of cordiality and started a war was because they all feared each other. They didn't dare to say who had the absolute advantage, and they didn't know what trump cards each other had. This sword formation was able to condense the sword might of 81 people, and it had always been the greatest secret of the Zhong clan. When they cultivated it, they would only do so in the secret grounds of the Zhong clan. There were only rumors that the Zhong clan had this sword formation as their ultimate sword formation, but no one knew how powerful it was. Qin Wentian soon discovered that he was surrounded by over 10 sword formations, revolving in a rhythmic pattern. Although his individual combat prowess was unrivaled among those at the same cultivation level, a sword cultivator's life and death battle was already an extremely dangerous matter. Not to mention, this was a chaotic battle where tens of thousands of swords shot out at the same time. Not good. At this moment, Qin Wentian saw the Heavenly Sword Sect's Jian Wuyo using the 9 heavenly swords to open up a path, killing his way into the sword formation, wanting to destroy it. The Li clan also realized that if they wanted to annihilate the Zhong clan, they couldn't allow the power of the sword formation to erupt unceasingly. They had to disrupt the sword formation. The experts of the Li clan joined hands and charged forward, disregarding their own lives. Since the battle had already begun, it was a matter of life and death. Chapter 4:14. Within the sword range, sword chi howled unceasingly as a desolate killing intent permeated the air. Some of the cultivators below the precipice felt their hearts trembling when they sensed the bloodthirsty sword might. Who would have thought that on the day the Wang clan arrived, the balance between the three major powers of the sword-reverent city would be instantly broken, resulting in such a terrifying battle. Astral light cascaded downwards, landing on the bottom of the precipice. Experts fell unceasingly, leaving only the demon sword in the middle of the sword range, as though it was an eternal existence. It was still embedded deep into the ground, unwilling to break out. Someone once said that this sword was like a demon, a sword with a spirit. No one could pull it out because the demon sword refused to acknowledge its existence. If not, it wouldn't be able to remain here for eternity. In the airspace above the sword range, a group of silhouettes quietly descended. These people calmly watched the battle below, as though it had nothing to do with them. They were naturally the members of the Wang clan. They were like spectators, spectating the battle. Maybe, this was the helplessness of the Heavenly Sword sect and Li clan. The Wang clan had clearly arrived, yet they chose not to act. In their eyes, regardless of the Heavenly Sword sect or the Li clan, they were nothing but chess pieces. As for the chess pieces themselves, they were completely insignificant. This sword formation of the Zong clan is truly powerful, to think that it can fight against the combined forces of the two clans. The middle-aged man from before stood among the Wang clan as he emotionlessly commented. So what of it? Although the might of the Zong clan's sword formation is powerful, they have also suffered heavy casualties. 9 of their formations have already been broken. The Heavenly Sword sect and Li clan are already on the verge of defeat. Another person coldly spoke. Do we really want to kill Qin Wentian here? There are too many secrets on him. For stellar martial cultivators, the majority of their cultivation secrets are stored within their interspatial rings. If we kill him, we would be able to obtain all of his secrets. Let's take the risk and capture him alive. Don't let things end up like during the ranking battle of the Heavenly Fate rankings. Since this is the case, let's kill him then. At this moment, he still hasn't taken out the divine steel. I wonder if it's because he has been guarding against us, or if his divine steel is no longer able to unleash its full might. We will know if we continue watching. In any case, there's no need to rush. The people of the Wang family spoke casually, seeming extremely indifferent. A moment later, the sword formation below was already in chaos, becoming a chaotic battle. The clan lord of the Zong clan, Zong Yi, as well as a few other doyens, stood guard around Qin Wentian, only to see Jian Wuyo and Li Zhentian rushing over and obstructing them. Qin Wentian had no choice but to retreat. The strength of these people was much stronger than him. If they were to seize the opportunity, they could easily kill him with just a few attacks. Qin Wentian had to maintain a certain distance from them. Terrifying demonic chi gushed forth from his body as his astral souls erupted forth, manifesting his astral novas. In the air, a powerful beam of astral light cascaded downwards. Qin Wentian's gaze was fixated on the heavenly dome. Instantly, a beam of astral light illuminated the area as demonic beasts howled. A golden primal ape appeared beside Qin Wentian. The aura of this golden primal ape was actually at the peak of the second level of Heavenly Dipper. After stepping into the Heavenly Dipper realm, he could still summon across realms. After which, the Crimson Blood Thunder Hawk, Silvery Rock, and the other ancient demonic beasts descended from the skies, surrounding Qin Wentian in the center. Many experts moved in the direction of Qin Wentian, as killing intent flashed in their eyes. The Wang clan had specifically stated that Qin Wentian was someone they had to kill. As long as they killed Qin Wentian, the mission this time around would be completed. Their Wang clan would then support their two clans to grow stronger and destroy the Zhong clan. The demonic qi exuding from Qin Wentian towered up into the skies. A pair of wings sprouted out from his back, and his gaze was like that of a demon. His silhouette was like a bolt of lightning as he dashed forward. In the center of his brows, a terrifying demonic eye could be seen. With a single glance, many stellar martial cultivators from the Heavenly Sword sect and Li clan who were below the Heavenly Dipper realm felt their heads shuddering violently as they fell into a deep slumber. After which, Qin Wentian slammed his palms together as the ancient sword on his back appeared in his hands. Puchi, Puchi. Fresh blood flowed out from the throats of several silhouettes as they died instantly. These people were all from the younger generation of the Heavenly Sword sect and Li clan. The countenances of those from the Heavenly Sword sect and Li clan froze. The will of the sword melody was actually so terrifying. With the humming of the sword, there was no way for those below the Heavenly Dipper realm to block it. Bzzz. A resplendent sword intent locked onto Qin Wentian as the silhouette of a young man stepped out, breaking through the layers of defenses as he dashed towards Qin Wentian. This young man was none other than the strongest out of the three sword sons of the Heavenly Sword sect, Jianxie. His cultivation base was at the third level of Heavenly Dipper, and even in the entire Heavenly Sword sect, he could be considered one of the more powerful characters. Jianxie's silhouette transformed into a series of afterimages as he brandished his sword, rushing towards Qin Wentian. Humph! Qin Wentian's countenance was ice cold. His third eye flashed as the sword in his hand hummed once more. Instantly, the afterimages were destroyed, but Jianxie's true body had already caught up to Qin Wentian, and the sword qi he emitted was even more terrifying than before. At the same time, from the left and right, there were experts rushing over. Although the experts from the Zhong clan had the heart to help, they were being held back by the experts from the Heavenly Sword sect and Li clan. Those from the Wang clan still stood on the precipice, coldly laughing as they watched this scene. If the divine steel still had its power, Qin Wentian wouldn't have taken it out to save the Zhong clan. But if he himself was in a life-and-death situation, would he still be able to hide it? But at this moment, the crowd discovered that the direction Qin Wentian was heading in was actually the direction where the demon sword was located. Instantly, he stood on the hilt of the demon sword as he stared at the silhouettes in the surroundings. His entire body was enveloped in layers of demonic armor. The sword son of the Heavenly Sword sect, Jianxie, descended. His eyes gleamed with an evil light as he shot towards Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian only felt an aura of death gushing forth from his eyes. However, how could his will be suppressed by Jianxie's eye technique? Bzzz. The demon sovereign astral nova and the sword sun astral nova both blasted out at the same time. The demon sovereign astral nova was akin to a terrifying primordial demon, while the sword sun astral nova was akin to the king of swords. When it whistled out, the astral nova floating above Jianxie's head trembled slightly. This was the suppression of the sword sun astral nova. Go! Jianxie pointed out with a finger as his astral nova, akin to the Grim Reaper, collided with the demon sovereign astral nova, while his sword sun astral nova clashed against Qin Wentian's sword sun astral nova. The advantage of Jianxie's astral nova lay in his cultivation base. The higher one's cultivation base was, the more condensed his astral nova would be, and the more terrifying the energy contained within would be. The advantage of Qin Wentian's astral nova lay in itself. His astral nova was formed from a single yuanfu, and was condensed from divine energy. In addition to the advantage of his astral souls, he wasn't the slightest bit weaker when facing Jianxie's sword sun astral nova. Especially the sword sun astral nova, it was akin to an ancient sword of the Tao of Kings. What was even more terrifying was that every inch of the king's sword was condensed from divine energy. When the king's sword sun astral nova shone with a brilliant light, countless sword divine inscriptions appeared on the surface of the king's sword sun astral nova, causing rumbling sounds to echo out as cracks appeared on the surface of Jian Xie's sword sun astral nova. Bzzz. A raging wind gusted by, Jian Xie's silhouette shuttled through the astral nova, rushing towards Qin Wentian. His eyes were incomparably cold, filled with a deathly aura. With a single slash of his sword, a terrifying black-colored sword hatred appeared in the air, descending from the heavens. Qin Wentian stabbed out with his sword. The keening of his sword was akin to the howling of a demonic dragon, blocking Jian Xie's attack. In an instant, a terrifying sword might engulf the entire space. Chi, the two swords slashed past each other, emitting a sharp whistling sound. Qin Wentian's palms trembled as his will of the Tao of swords erupted forth. Boundless sword keening reverberated throughout the heavens and earth. Instantly, Jian Xie's countenance drastically changed. He only felt that his entire body was being enveloped by swords. Die. Jian Xie was a sword sun. His sword was akin to the sword of the Grim Reaper, causing a terrifying vortex to form, enveloping Qin Wentian. Bang! Astral light flashed as Qin Wentian's silhouette directly vanished from sight. This was one of the 9 ultimate arts of Grand Xia, stellar transposition. Jian Xie felt an intense sense of danger, but how could he make it in time? The keening of the sword keening rang out beside his ears as his body was instantly pierced by a sword. Fresh blood dripped from his wounds. Qin Wentian waved his palms, causing his blood to flow towards the demon sword. Drip, a light sound rang out, but it caused Jian Xie's countenance to be filled with terror. He retreated with explosive speed, but how could he be in time? The demon sword glowed with a blood-red light, and in an instant, Jian Xie screamed in agony. The blood in his body frenziedly flowed towards the demon sword, and was instantly devoured by it. In the blink of an eye, his body turned into a shriveled corpse as he fell from the air. He died. Those who surrounded Qin Wentian all had expressions of shock on their faces as they stared at Qin Wentian. Initially, they thought that with Jian Xie's strength, killing Qin Wentian wouldn't be a problem at all. However, the strongest sword son of the heavenly sword sect, Jian Xie, actually died in the hands of Qin Wentian. Those from the Zong clan also felt fear in their hearts when they saw this scene. If clan Lord Zong Yi hadn't arrived that day, that elder of the Zong clan would also have been defeated by Qin Wentian. The top ranker of the heavenly fate rankings, Qin Wentian's reputation as a demon-level genius wasn't undeserved. It seemed like Zong Yi had also placed all his bets on him. As long as he matured, he would definitely be able to lead the Zong clan to new heights. But at this moment, Qin Wentian was facing an even more terrifying crisis. The people from all 4 directions all surrounded him, as a terrifying killing intent engulfed the heavens and earth, enveloping Qin Wentian. In the air, a group of silhouettes descended. These were none other than the members of the Wang clan. The members of the Wang clan didn't even bother activating the divine steel when they saw that Qin Wentian was in a life-and-death situation. Most probably, the might of the divine steel had already weakened, and Qin Wentian would die without a doubt. Qin Wentian inclined his head, staring at the silhouettes in the surroundings as his gaze turned ice-cold. His eyes flickered with a cold light, causing the hearts of those who looked at him to shiver. In his palm, a sword sliced through the air, as a droplet of fresh blood dripped down from it. This scene caused the countenances of countless people to drastically change. Even the clan lord of the Zong clan, Zong Yi, had a look of terror on his face when he saw this. Wentian. Zong Yi's countenance paled. Qin Wentian, what was he doing? Do you want my demonic blood? Qin Wentian stared at the demon's sword below him as he drew in a deep breath, preparing himself for the worst-case scenario. As to why he dared to feed his blood to the demon's sword, it was because when the sword screeched, the demonic blood in his body would howl as well. The demon's sword was thirsting for blood. Abruptly, a resplendent light enveloped it as demonic chi shook the heavens, illuminating the entire area. The demon's sword wailed unceasingly. Chapter 4:15. At the bottom of the precipice, at the sword range, the spectators stared at Qin Wentian, their countenances filled with shock. This young man was actually feeding the sword with his blood. The demon sword was like a demon. If it wanted to drink blood, it would definitely drink all of it until the person died. At this moment, Qin Wentian was incomparably cautious. The reason why he dared to do this was because when the sword wailed, his bloodline would resonate with it. Now, he was feeding the sword with his blood. A mysterious sensation enveloped Qin Wentian. It was as though he could feel the sorrow of the demon sword. However, the demon sword didn't continue drinking his blood. The spectators all had expressions of shock on their faces. At this moment, the sword might was extremely terrifying. The mournful wails of the demon sword echoed throughout the heavens and earth, yet it didn't drink Qin Wentian's blood. Qin Wentian placed both his hands on the hilt of the sword as demonic qi gushed forth from him. He abruptly pulled the sword out, and in an instant, a terrifying rumbling sound echoed out. The sword range trembled as the heavens and earth howled. A fearsome sword might swept across the heavens and earth. Qi, qi, a crisp sound rang out as the demon sword moved. It was pulled out by half a foot. Although it was only half a foot, it caused great waves of shock to surge in the hearts of the spectators. The demon sword had moved. This demon sword seemed to have descended from the heavens, cleaving apart the earth, breaking out of the precipice and giving birth to the sword range. Nobody could move it in the slightest. Today, Qin Wentian, a cultivator at the first level of Heavenly Dipper, caused the demon sword to be pulled out by half a foot. This half a foot was sufficient to shock the entire sword reverence city. How is this possible? The three major powers of the sword reverence city all had expressions of disbelief on their faces. The shock in their hearts was indescribable. An even more powerful sword might permeated the air. Everyone was surrounded by a terrifying sword might. Kill him. In the air, the countenances of those from the Wang clan changed when they saw this scene. They were worried that there would be another unforeseen event and instantly gave the order to kill Qin Wentian. As soon as he finished speaking, the people surrounding Qin Wentian stepped forward and charged towards Qin Wentian. However, at that moment, Qin Wentian pointed his finger forward. In an instant, there seemed to be an endless amount of sword might gathered together and pierced through the throat. A figure stood stiffly in the air, his face as pale as paper. After that, his body fell from the sky. A single finger, annihilating everything. The others halted their steps, not daring to move forward. Their countenances were filled with shock. Qin Wentian was actually able to borrow the power of the demon sword. Qin Wentian continued to pull out the sword. However, the mournful sound of the sword grew louder, but it did not move. Only to see Qin Wentian placing his palms on the body of the demon sword. Instantly, drops of fresh blood dripped onto the body of the demon sword, absorbed by it. The power of the sword grew stronger, and the mournful cry of the sword resounded through the heavens and earth. In the air, outside the precipice, a heavenly phenomenon occurred. The mournful cries of dragons and the cries of phoenixes manifested in the air, illuminating 1,000 miles of land as though it was daytime. Within the sword reverence city, countless people stared at the scene outside as their hearts trembled violently. The demon sword, mournful cry, a heavenly phenomenon. At the bottom of the precipice, the crowd all inclined their heads as they stared in shock at this scene. Qin Wentian pulled out the demon sword once again. This time around, the distance between them was 2 feet. How much blood do you want to drink? Qin Wentian stared at the demon sword as he mumbled in a low voice. After that, he inclined his head and stared at those from the Wang clan in the air. His countenance was ice-cold as a terrifying killing intent gushed forth from him. A bone-chilling sword intent gushed forth from his eyes, causing many from the Wang clan to feel a bone-chilling coldness. The Wang clan wishes to kill me. If I don't die, the Wang clan will definitely perish. Each of Qin Wentian's words were as cold as ice. As the sound of his voice faded, he stabbed out with his finger, causing the center of Wang Zhao's brows to be dyed with blood. The countenances of the experts from the Wang clan drastically changed. Qin Wentian stared at Wang Ju, and similarly, with a single finger strike, the center of Wang Ju's brows was stained with blood. Wang Ju's body fell from the air. Wang Ju had once been ranked within the top 6 of the Heavenly Fate rankings. During the ranking battle, he didn't die in the ancient kingdom of Grand Xia. But now, he died in the Sword Reverend City, in the hands of Qin Wentian. Because, the Wang clan wanted to kill Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian's hand still slashed across the body of the demon sword, causing blood to appear. Yet his gaze was as cold as ever. Go! The experts from the Wang clan roared as they soared up into the skies. Qin Wentian pulled out the demon sword, and with a flick of his finger, numerous beams of sword light shot forth, instantly killing several experts from the Wang clan. Retreat! Jian Wuyo from the Heavenly Sword sect felt his heart trembling. He gave the order to retreat, not daring to remain here any longer. Leave, quickly leave. The experts from the Li clan also started to panic. They had to leave this place or death awaited them. Qin Wentian's cold gaze landed on them. Everywhere his gaze passed by, the wailing of the sword intent could be heard, borrowing the might of the demon sword to reap the lives of those who died. Those from the Heavenly Sword sect and Li clan fell one after another, causing those from the Zhong clan to be completely dumbfounded. Qin Wentian, he was actually able to borrow the might of the demon sword. Retreat quickly. Jian Wuyo from the Heavenly Sword sect howled in rage. Qin Wentian stared at the fleeing experts, his countenance as cold as ever. His other hand was placed on the body of the demon sword, and after which, he slowly sliced open a wound. Fresh blood flowed unceasingly into the demon sword, and the mournful wails of the demon sword grew increasingly terrifying as the manifestation of the heavens and earth grew even more dazzling. Qin Wentian pulled out the sword once again. This time around, the sword was raised 5 feet into the air. The earth rumbled as the sword range ruptured, and the precipice trembled violently as a fearsome sword might engulf the entire world. Heavenly Sword sect, Li clan, you failed to kill me, yet you still wish to retreat? A cold voice rang out, as though it had fused together with the mournful wails of the sword. This was the voice of the sword, and also the voice of Qin Wentian. A cold wind gusted by, causing everyone to feel an extreme chill. Those from the Heavenly Sword sect frantically fled, but at this moment, there were some people beside them who felt a chill on their bodies. They touched their bodies, only to see fresh blood on their bodies. Their countenances instantly paled as they screamed in agony. Numerous silhouettes descended from the precipice. Jian Wuyo felt a deep shock in his heart when he saw this scene. He regretted his actions today. The Li clan was the same. In this short period of time, it was unknown how many experts had fallen, and how many geniuses of their clan had perished in this battle. Those from the Wang clan were the fastest to flee, but similarly, more than half of them had perished. When they rushed out of the precipice, the mournful wails of the sword finally weakened, and the threat they felt was reduced. However, they still continued to flee, not daring to stay any longer. Those from the Heavenly Sword sect and Li clan also arrived soon after. Their countenances were like dead ashes, as despair filled their hearts. Why was the ending of this battle so tragic? Tonight, the elites of the Heavenly Sword sect and Li clan had all been dispatched to the sword range. But now, their elites were all annihilated. From now onwards, there would no longer be 3 major powers in the Sword Reverend City. When they thought of this, their hearts were filled with sorrow. At this moment, the people of the Sword Reverend City continued to rush out, and when they saw the scene before them, their hearts trembled with fear. What was going on? The Wang clan and Li clan, as well as the Heavenly Sword sect, all stared at the precipice with deep hatred and trepidation in their eyes. It was as though there was a devil lurking below the precipice. In the air, the mournful wails of dragons and the wails of phoenixes could be heard. This was the manifestation of the mournful wails of the demon sword. Could it be that the experts of the three major powers had all perished in the hands of the demon sword? Are all of you satisfied with the ending of this battle? A voice drifted over from the precipice, yet it also seemed to descend from the heavens, fusing together with the mournful wails of the demon sword. What was even more shocking was that at the instant they heard this voice, the remaining experts from the Wang clan, Li clan and Heavenly Sword sect all soared up into the air, as though they were filled with fear. Just a single voice was enough to cause them to be in such a state of panic. This voice, whose voice did it belong to? Who could have such a deterrent force? They also saw that the hands of Jian Wuyo, the sect master of the Heavenly Sword sect, and the patriarch of the Li family, Li Zhentian, were trembling. For people at their level to have their hands trembling in fear, one could imagine what kind of terrifying things they had experienced. Why was the demon sword pulled out by him? The experts from the Wang clan coldly spoke, staring at the experts from the Heavenly Sword sect and Li clan. However, Jian Wuyo and Li Zhentian were also staring at him, their countenances were similarly cold, as though they didn't think highly of him. For this battle, their elites were all destroyed. Now, would the Wang clan still dare to question them? Who would know that Qin Wentian was the one who pulled out the demon sword? Sir, it was your Wang clan that wanted to deal with Qin Wentian. He pulled out the demon sword, but the one who suffered the most was us. Jian Wuyo's voice was ice-cold. Under the influence of his rage, he actually didn't fear offending the experts from the Wang clan. Upon hearing this voice, the hearts of the people in the surroundings couldn't help but tremble. That voice earlier, was that Qin Wentian's voice? Qin Wentian actually pulled out the demon sword that had remained unmoving for tens of thousands of years. What kind of shocking battle happened tonight exactly? At this moment, at the bottom of the precipice, the sword range was torn apart, as though it would be destroyed at any moment. Qin Wentian gripped the hilt of the demon sword with both his hands. His long hair fluttered in the wind as he stared at the sky, his gaze filled with boundless coldness. He couldn't continue to pull out the demon sword. This sword was too demonic, it wanted to drink his blood dry. Those from the Zhong clan gathered together. At this moment, great waves of shock rose up in their hearts, causing them to feel as though their hearts would explode at any moment. This was too shocking, they had never imagined that something so shocking would happen. Staring at the silhouette wielding the demon sword, it was as though that unmoving demon sword should have belonged to him in the first place. That black-haired young man, when he was still in the Zhong clan, he was calm, tranquil, and didn't reveal his sharpness. Even when Zhong Hong and Zhong Peng provoked him several times, it was as though he didn't hear them at all. But now, they had witnessed the arrogant side of that young man. Was this the magnificence of the top ranker of the Heavenly Fate rankings? Was this the arrogance he displayed on the Heavenly Fate rankings battle platform? What a pity, they had missed out on the ranking battle last year, and didn't have the chance to witness his radiance. At this moment, that young man wielded the demon sword in his hands, as astral light cascaded down on him. He was akin to a supreme monarch, causing them to feel the urge to prostrate themselves in worship. Even the elder who had a grudge with Qin Wentian before felt ashamed of his own inferiority. This young man was as resplendent as the astral river, what qualifications did he have to criticize him? Even the clan leader of the Zhong clan, Zhong Yi, didn't have the qualifications to control such a character. The dragon was hidden in the depths of the Zhong clan, they had to grab hold of this opportunity. When the dragon soared above the 9 heavens, it would be the day when their Zhong clan soared to the skies. Zhong Yi inclined his head, drawing in a deep breath as he spoke, from today onwards, the sword son of the Zhong clan, Qin Wentian, shall command the entire Zhong clan. His authority shall be above the clan leader. Chapter 4:16. From today onwards, the sword son of the Zhong clan, Qin Wentian, has the authority to command the entire Zhong clan. His authority is above the clan lord. Zhong Yi's words caused the hearts of everyone in the Zhong clan to tremble. Zhong Yi actually handed over the authority to Qin Wentian at this moment. Not only that, Qin Wentian's authority was above that of the clan lord. Was he planning to hand over the life and death of the Zhong clan to Qin Wentian? Staring at the young man, many people were still in a daze. Although they were shocked by Qin Wentian's talent and strength, they had never imagined that the clan lord would hand over the highest authority of the Zhong clan to him. Qin Wentian was also taken aback. He turned his gaze onto Zhong Yi. It seemed like Zhong Yi wanted to take this opportunity to push him up. Now that he had pulled out the demon sword, it was undoubtedly a good opportunity for him to push himself to the front of the Zhong clan. Naturally, Zhong Yi also wanted to tell him that the Zhong clan was willing to swear absolute loyalty to him, the successor of the Azure Emperor. This way, in the future, if he could truly rise up and lead the Azure faction to glory, the Zhong clan would also have a place in his heart. Since he had chosen this path, with Zhong Yi's decisive style of doing things, he might as well do it perfectly and not let him have any ill feelings. Wentian, in the future, the Zhong clan shall be handed over to you. Zhong Yi bowed slightly to Qin Wentian. This scene caused the countenances of the spectators to be filled with shock. Qin Wentian nodded his head lightly. Since Zhong Yi had already done so, he naturally wouldn't pass on this responsibility to others. In this battle, the Heavenly Sword sect and the Li clan suffered heavy losses. It would be extremely difficult for them to rise up again. However, to the Wang clan, this isn't a huge blow at all. These people will definitely mobilize experts from the war continent over. Uncle Zhong, this sword-reverent city cannot be left behind. Qin Wentian slowly spoke. If he wanted to shake a transcendent power, his current strength was still too weak, it was far from enough. Tonight, we shall harvest the entire sword range and retreat from the sword-reverent city. Zhong Yi nodded his head as he stared at Qin Wentian. Wentian, are you able to subdue the demon sword? It's difficult. This sword has drunk my blood. Even though it resonates with me, it still cries out, difficult to tame. Qin Wentian slowly spoke. Lowering his head, his gaze landed on the gigantic demon sword. Both of his hands gushed forth with a terrifying might as he pulled it out. The earth rumbled, the cliffs trembled, and the sword whizzed between heaven and earth. Above the sky, under the starlight, the strange phenomenon was still there. The sound of the sword gave off a mournful feeling. If the sword is like a demon, if it has a spirit, why is it not willing to roar in the 9 heavens? Qin Wentian bowed his head as he spoke to the demon sword. His voice rumbled, fusing together with the mournful wail of the sword, resounding through the heavens and earth. Everyone in the sword-reverent city could hear it clearly. At this moment, they already knew that the sword son of the Zhong clan was actually the number 1 ranker on the heavenly fate rankings, the legendary young man, Qin Wentian. This young man actually wanted to tame the demon sword. The unmoving demon sword had risen because of him. What sort of character was the number 1 ranker on the heavenly fate rankings exactly? Many people wanted to see Qin Wentian with their own eyes. But at this moment, the sword permeated the air, and nobody dared to descend the cliff. As the sound of Qin Wentian's voice faded, the mournful wail of the demon sword intensified. The strange phenomenon in the skies grew increasingly dazzling, and the mournful wail of the sword was akin to millions of sharp swords whizzing through the air. These millions of sword wails converged together, transforming into an ancient voice that was filled with the vicissitudes of time. Hating the heavens for being too low. The deep and ancient voice resounded between the heavens and the earth, causing everyone's hearts to tremble. The demon sword actually spoke in the human language, hating the heavens for being too low, refusing to roar. Demon sword, eternally silent, hating the heavens for being too low. Qin Wentian's heart trembled as he murmured. His voice was still one with the mournful wail of the sword, reverberating through the air. How demonic was this sword? It wasn't that it couldn't move, it was just that it was unwilling. This sword hated the heavens for being too low. What kind of spirit was this? What kind of ancient sword was this? Even those from the Wang clan of the War Continent were trembling in fear when they heard the words of the demon sword. They came to the sword reverence city. Other than mining the sword range, they had another important purpose. They wanted to tame the demon sword so that the Wang clan of the War Continent could use it. However, as the words of the demon sword rang out, the people from the Wang clan no longer had such thoughts. The demon sword hated the heavens for being too low, let alone the Wang clan. Although the Wang clan was one of the hegemons of the War Continent, in the perspective of the entire continent, how could they dare to contend against the heavens? No wonder no one was able to make the demon sword submit in the past millions of years. Even the heavens despised this demon sword. How could a human be able to tame it? Mournful wail, because it hates the heavens for being too low. Qin Wentian murmured, since you are willing to mourn for me, you can rise with me. I will not bring disgrace to you. The mournful wails of the demon sword continued to tremble violently, yet it didn't budge an inch. Qin Wentian could no longer pull the demon sword out. The sword wasn't willing to move. Those from the Zhong clan felt their hearts tighten when they saw this scene. But when they discovered that the sword wasn't willing to move, they couldn't help but feel a sense of disappointment. Zhong Yi persuaded, this sword is too demonic, it hates the heavens for being too low. It's only normal that it doesn't want to be drawn out with you. Qin Wentian nodded his head, yet he still felt a sense of melancholy in his heart. It was truly a pity that the sword wasn't willing to be drawn out. The demon sword hasn't moved since the start of time. You can already be considered the first person to pull it out. Zhong Yi continued, his words causing the countenances of those from the Zhong clan to stiffen. Indeed, Qin Wentian had already accomplished something that no one in the past millions of years had been able to do. He was the first person to use his own strength to cause the demon sword to mourn. The demon sword drank his blood but didn't kill him. He was also the first person to pull out the demon sword. He was still so young, yet he was the top ranker on the heavenly fate rankings. His future was filled with boundless radiance. Qin Wentian stood there, the blood in his body seethed unceasingly, as though it wanted to rush out of his body. Clutching the demon sword in his hand, the sword might it exuded gradually dimmed. Finally, the light emitted by the demon sword vanished, and so did the phenomenon. The demon sword no longer wailed as it sank back into a state of silence. This kind of silence seemed to be filled with endless sorrow. Who could understand the sorrow of eternity? Hating the heavens for being too low, who could cause the demon sword to howl through the 9 heavens? On the precipice, the spectators all heaved a sigh of relief when they saw that the demon sword no longer wailed. Luckily, Qin Wentian hadn't managed to pull the demon sword out. If not, given the might of the demon sword, it would be a calamity for them. This demon sword was like a demon, it had a spirit, daring to hate the heavens for being too low. If Qin Wentian could use its power, it would surely shake the entire Grand Xia. However, given the nature of the demon sword, there was no way it would be tamed by others. Although the demon sword only spoke a single sentence, that sentence was sufficient to shake Grand Xia. Hating the heavens for being too low. Time to mine the sword range. Qin Wentian didn't persist on it. Given his current strength, even if he managed to pull the demon sword out, it would be extremely difficult for him to control it. Zhong Yi nodded his head. Mine the sword range, and at the same time, retrieve the interspatial rings of those who died. Those from the Zhong clan nodded as they departed. In the earlier battle, too many experts had fallen. The interspatial rings of those who died would surely contain a terrifying amount of wealth. How could they allow them to remain at the bottom of the precipice? Qin Wentian slowly walked down from the demon sword, arriving at Zhong Yi's side. Now that the Wang and Li clans and Heavenly Sword sect had suffered great losses, they wouldn't dare to come again. Wentian, what do you plan to do in the future? Zhong Yi asked. Qin Wentian had offended several transcendent powers, he naturally knew this. Now that he had handed the Zhong clan over to Qin Wentian, it was still insufficient to contend against the transcendent powers. He didn't know what Qin Wentian planned to do in the future. I'll first take in the hidden faction as my subordinates before gathering them together. If possible, I wish to establish a brand new power. I hope Uncle Zhong will be able to help me. Qin Wentian spoke. The hidden faction of the Azure Emperor wasn't weak, but they still had no way to contend against the transcendent powers. If they split up, they would disperse. If he gathered all the hidden factions together and trained them for a few years, their core strength would definitely not be any weaker than the transcendent powers. The only thing they lacked was their foundation, a foundation that was at the peak of the transcendent powers. To do this, he would need to rely on himself, as well as a group of outstanding geniuses to rise up. They had to be strong enough to contend against the peak powers of the transcendent powers. Qin Wentian naturally understood that this required time. Naturally. Zhong Yi nodded. If they're in my hands, being able to witness the rise of the Azure faction in Grand Xia once again, wouldn't that be a blessing? In addition, some of the elders of the clan have already left. If they're still alive, I'm sure their strength would be even stronger than before. I'll go and gather them back. The Zhong clan was the hidden faction of the Azure Emperor. They had existed since the Azure Emperor era and had developed for thousands of years. Naturally, there would be some outstanding geniuses that appeared. As they grew older, they would roam the continents, pursuing higher cultivation bases. If that's the case, that would naturally be for the best. Qin Wentian smiled as he nodded. In truth, he had no idea how strong the hidden faction of the Azure Emperor was now. There was a possibility that some of the major powers had already perished due to the passage of time. For example, the White Deer Institute and the Zhong clan could be considered as having developed better. Naturally, there was also the possibility that some terrifying characters would appear in some of the major powers. Qin Wentian would have to wait for him to find out more. Qin Wentian. At this moment, a voice boomed out from the top of the cliff, entering Qin Wentian's ears. Qin Wentian's eyes flickered. He inclined his head and stared at the air as he coldly spoke, "Are the people from the Wang clan still not willing to give up? You borrowed the power of the demon sword, that's your luck. However, you better remember the consequences of your actions today." The voice in the air contained a threatening aura. In addition, there's one more thing I forgot to tell you. Since you're in the Sword Reverence City, you shouldn't know about this, right? Qin Wentian furrowed his brows. From the tone of the voice, it didn't seem to be a good thing. Qin Wentian, on the Heavenly Fate rankings, you held hands with Mo Qingcheng, announcing your relationship to the world. I've even heard of it in the War Continent. What a pair of immortal companions, causing people to be envious. The people of Grand Xia are all giving their blessings to the two of you. That expert from the Wang clan seemed to be praising, yet his tone was filled with a sinister coldness. He continued, "Sadly, the heavens don't grant the wishes of man. Lovers might not be able to be together forever. In the Moon Continent, the Pill Emperor Hall has already announced to the 9 prefectures that they're recruiting a husband for Mo Qingcheng. Qin Wentian, do you think that the Pill Emperor Hall would release Mo Qingcheng just because she wanted to nurture her? If you and Mo Qingcheng become a couple, wouldn't the Pill Emperor Hall have wasted their efforts in nurturing her for nothing?" As the sound of his voice faded, Qin Wentian's countenance instantly turned ice cold, as a terrifying light flickered in his eyes. Luo He, she promised Qingcheng that she wouldn't interfere in her matters. Qin Wentian's voice was extremely cold. How laughable. Now that Mo Qingcheng's performance is so outstanding, would her master, Luo He, allow Mo Qingcheng to leave with you? If that's the case, why would she bring her back? Mo Qingcheng's future husband would also have to join the Pill Emperor Hall, but that place isn't a place you can enter. The other party coldly continued, "Not only that, I heard that after this matter, Mo Qingqing caused a huge ruckus in the Pill Emperor Hall, and even wanted to secretly escape. Luo he has already locked her up, and this is the last chance she will give Mo Qingqing. If Mo Qingqing dares to reject her, the consequences are not something I can imagine. Qin Wentian drew in a deep breath, as a terrifying coldness radiated from him. He had long known that Luo he wouldn't allow him and Mo Qingqing to be together so easily. But in just a short span of a year, Luo he had already gone back on her word, doing such a thing. Qin Wentian, do you still dare to go to the moon continent? That voice boomed out, as the middle-aged man departed, leaving behind a cold voice that reverberated in the air. Moon continent, Pill Emperor Hall. Qin Wentian, do you still dare to go? Chapter 4:17. Qin Wentian's gaze was as sharp as a sword, capable of piercing through the void. The moon continent, the Pill Emperor Hall. Wentian, he's trying to provoke you. If what he said is true, the Pill Emperor Hall in the moon continent would surely gather there. It's too dangerous for you to go there. Zhong Yi frowned. I know. Qin Wentian nodded. However, I have to go to the moon continent no matter what. An expression of contemplation flashed in Zhong Yi's eyes. After a moment, he spoke, let me go with you. Uncle Zhong, you still have to settle things in the Zhong clan. Qin Wentian shook his head. Don't worry, there are still many doyens in the Zhong clan. I'll be worried if you head to the Pill Emperor Hall alone. However, I won't go with you. I'll disguise myself as a passerby and blend in with the crowd. No one would be able to recognize me. Zhong Yi spoke. Qin Wentian stared at Zhong Yi before he turned and stared at the skies. All of a sudden, he laughed uproariously, fine, Uncle Zhong. Since you've put it this way, you can come with me. As the sound of his voice faded, Qin Wentian's silhouette flickered as he landed on the demon sword. Staring at the demon sword, Qin Wentian directly sliced open the skin of his finger. After which, he abruptly sliced open the body of the demon sword. Instantly, fresh blood dripped onto the body of the demon sword and was absorbed by it. Wentian, what are you doing? Zhong Yi's countenance drastically changed. Qin Wentian was actually feeding his blood to the demon sword again. I'm going to unsheath the sword. Qin Wentian's voice was ice-cold. He closed his eyes as his blood flowed unceasingly into the demon sword. Instantly, the demon sword let out a mournful wail as a beam of sword light shot up into the skies. Within his body, beside the candlelight, the golden strands of blood flowed together with his demonic bloodline, entering the demon sword. Instantly, the mournful wails of the demon sword grew even more terrifying as another phenomenon manifested in the skies. On the precipice, the people of the sword-reverent city initially wanted to leave. Yet at this moment, a terrifying sword intent gushed forth as another phenomenon manifested in the skies. Their hearts pounded once again. What exactly was going on? Buzz! A beam of sword light shot up into the sky, resplendent and boundless. This entire space was enveloped by the sound of the sword whistling, as though it would never stop. They could only feel the cold wind of the sword hanging around them, so cold. At the bottom of the cliff, Qin Wentian stared at the giant sword. His eyes were filled with terrifying tenacity as he said, "You hate the sky for being too low and refuse to roar in the 9 heavens. You hate me for being weak and wailing incessantly. However, even though I am weak today, I have the ambition to break the sky." Qin Wentian's voice was solemn, and his voice melted into the sword qi. His words echoed between heaven and earth. He was communicating with the sword. Qin Wentian refused to give up. Earlier, the person from the Wang clan had used Mo Qingqing to provoke Qin Wentian. His countenance changed as he stared at the phenomenon occurring in the surroundings. He then coldly laughed. The demon sword hates the fact that the heavens are too low and refuses to come out. How can he pull it out? If he enters the moon continent, he would surely be trapped. However, Qin Wentian naturally wouldn't be able to hear his voice. He could sense the arrogance of the demon sword, as well as the mournful wailing of the sword. His heart, his bloodline, would resonate with it. The mournful wailing of the demon sword was because it hated the heavens for being too low, hated the fact that it had no master to serve it. Qin Wentian could sense its emotions. And at this moment, after hearing his words, the mournful wailing of the sword grew even louder. If you have the ambition to break the heavens, then follow me out of the earth. Qin Wentian's voice was solemn, as though he was conversing with the primordial era. His blood unceasingly flowed onto the blade of the sword, yet there was no expression on his face. It was as though even if his blood was sucked dry, he still wanted to pull the sword out. A humming sound rang out as the blood in Qin Wentian's body trembled. Both his hands were placed on the hilt of the sword, and with a howl of rage, he gathered all the strength in his body into his palms as he abruptly pulled the sword out. Rumble, the heavens and earth trembled as the sound of 1,000,000 swords resonated in unison. It's moving. The countenances of Zhong Yi and the others from the Zhong clan changed. The demon sword had moved. Bang! The sword range collapsed, the cliff shattered, and the demon sword emerged from the earth. A supreme sword might gushed forth from the bottom of the cliff, shooting up into the skies. A beam of sword light pierced through the layers of clouds, as though the heavens were about to be split apart. Rise, the demon sword is about to emerge. Towering waves of emotions rose up in Zhong Yi's heart. Qin Wentian, if he didn't pull out the demon sword today, he would never rest. Chi. The demon sword was slowly pulled out, and finally, when the tip of the sword appeared, a terrifying tempest manifested in this entire space. Those from the Zhong clan hurriedly retreated, their countenances were all filled with terror. The streaks of sword light slashed at the cliff, causing terrifying cracks to appear on the cliff. It was as if the cliff had been slashed apart at the waist. Countless beams of sword light converged together, the cylindrical beam transformed into a beam of azure light, competing with the heavens in terms of splendor. The countless silhouettes on the cliff felt as though they could hear the sound of their own hearts pounding. They inclined their heads and stared at the sky. The sword light pierced through the clouds, as though a black hole had been opened up in the sky. The sword wailed in agony. It hated the heavens for being too low. Rumble. The earth seemed to sink downwards, as though the cliff had been sliced apart. Under the pressure of the sword intent, there were even some who prostrated themselves on the ground, prostrating themselves in worship of this supreme sword might. The demon sword had remained unmoving for tens of thousands of years, but when it moved, it shook the heavens and earth. Qin Wentian's entire body was drenched in sweat and blood. He pulled out the demon sword, his palms were dyed red with his blood. Using all his strength, he inclined his head and advanced forward, slowly rising up into the air. The demon sword rose up as well. You hate the heavens for being too low. Although you have a supreme sword might, you are unwilling to be used by me. Qin Wentian's voice fused with the sound of the heavens and earth, penetrating through the void. Today, I'm lowly, but who knows if I won't be able to ascend to the heavens in the future. Qin Wentian inclined his head and stared at the sky, his eyes flashing with an incomparably intense obsession. The Pill Emperor Hall and Luo he had broken their promise. Why? Today, they were lowly, offending the heavens of Grand Xia. Rise! Qin Wentian howled in madness, his body slowly rose up into the air. The muscles in his body were all stretched taut, as energy erupted forth from every single part of his body. Millions upon millions of sword intents revolved around him as he pulled out the demon sword. The demon sword followed him out of the ground, soaring up into the air, wanting to exit the cliff. The experts from the Wang clan, Li clan and Heavenly Sword sect all felt this terrifying scene. Their hearts trembled as their bodies trembled. That expert who tried to provoke Qin Wentian paled. He had never imagined that Qin Wentian would pull out the demon's sword because of his words. Not only that, if he didn't pull out the demon's sword, he wouldn't be human. Will the demon's sword follow him and appear in Grand Xia? The expert from the Wang clan asked himself. He could clearly sense that Qin Wentian was ascending, bringing the demon's sword with him. Go, let's go. The sect leader of the Heavenly Sword sect, Jian Wuyo, suddenly sobered up as he roared. Momentarily, the experts from the Heavenly Sword sect all flickered, preparing to depart. The cry of the sword, where can life be found? A voice rang out from the depths of the cliff, as well as from the sword intents that filled the air. Abruptly, countless sharp swords pierced through the air, aiming for the experts from the Heavenly Sword sect. The experts from the Heavenly Sword sect turned their heads, only to see millions upon millions of sword intents descending from the skies, blotting out the sun. Where can I meet life? The sword had already sounded. Qin Wentian's killing intent was born. Jian Wuyo's entire body was enveloped by boundless sword light. His astral nova appeared, enveloping his entire body. His feet stepped on the gigantic sword as he soared up into the sky, transforming into a beam of sword qi. Puchi, puchi, as the sword fell, the shadows disappeared. In an instant it was unknown how many experts had turned into ashes. A blood-curdling scream rang out from afar. Jian Wuyo transformed into a beam of light, the swords surrounding him had all been destroyed. Even his astral nova was shattered, and one of his arms was severed. Fresh blood flowed freely from his wounds. However, he didn't dare to turn back and fled frantically. Everyone looked at the background. This scene would never be forgotten for the rest of their lives. Those from the Li clan and Wang clan also understood what the current situation was. Earlier, they were still immersed in shock and didn't expect that Qin Wentian would be able to pull out the demon's sword again. They seemed to have forgotten that the moment the demon's sword was pulled out, the first target Qin Wentian would kill was none other than them. Go! Li Zhentian roared. Those from the Wang clan also fled, yet the sword whistled over, leaving behind a trail of blood. The strength of that expert from the Wang clan was extremely high, yet the sword intent that was flying towards him was all aimed at him. Die! A cold voice rang out in his heart. Instantly, the keening of a sword could be heard as a trail of blood appeared on his body. His body continued rushing forwards, yet his gaze gradually turned sluggish. Before his death, boundless regret and hatred flooded his heart. Why did he have to use Imo Qingqing's name to provoke Qin Wentian? At the precipice, the gazes of everyone were focused on a young man that resembled a demon. He slowly ascended upwards until he reached a height of 1,000 meters. Below him, the true form of the demon's sword could finally be seen. Boom! Qin Wentian's body slammed onto the ground as he coughed out fresh blood. However, his hands were still tightly gripping onto the hilt of the demon's sword, unwilling to let go. The spectators discovered that Qin Wentian's palms were no longer the palms of a human, but the palms of an incomparably gigantic demon. His palms directly covered the area around the sword hilt, as a terrifying determination could be seen flickering in his eyes. Since you aren't willing to let me control you, I shall accompany you for 100,000 miles. I shall let you see that my obsession is worthy enough to slash apart the heavens. Qin Wentian seemed to be conversing with the demon sword. He held on to the demon sword as he advanced forward step by step. The demon sword slid across the ground, leaving deep sword scars in its wake, as though the earth itself had been split apart by a single sword strike. Those in front of him all stepped aside, nobody dared to block his path. Everywhere he passed by, a supreme sword might swept across the heavens and earth. The mournful wails of the sword gradually grew weaker. It was as though the demon sword was trying to sense how deep his obsession was. Wentian. Those from the Zhong clan landed on the ground. Staring at the deep sword scars in the ground, as well as the staggering back of Qin Wentian, they felt as though their hearts were being struck by an ancient bell. They had always thought that the number one ranker in the heavenly fate rankings was an extremely powerful talent. They had always thought that the number one ranker on the heavenly fate rankings was unparalleled arrogance. However, at this moment, it was as though they could see for themselves why the number one ranker on the heavenly fate rankings was none other than Qin Wentian. Is he really going to carry the demon sword to the moon continent? Zhong Yi murmured. It was hard to imagine how terrifying Qin Wentian's obsession was. If this man didn't shock Grand Xia, who would be able to control the 9 continents? Doyens, the Zhong clan will temporarily be under your control. I shall follow the Sword Sun and enter the moon continent. Zhong Yi slowly spoke. He lifted his feet and followed the towering sword scars, as well as the footsteps of Qin Wentian, as they walked towards the moon continent that was 10,000 miles away. How long would this journey take? Chapter 418. 1,000-meter demon sword, even heavenly dipper sovereigns wouldn't be able to pull it out. How heavy was this sword exactly? Nobody knew that Qin Wentian was the first person to pull out the sword and bring it out of the precipice. However, he still had no way to wield the sword and could only drag it along the way. Every step he took was so heavy that it felt like an imprint. At this rate, he would most probably reach the moon continent in 3 years. When Qin Wentian dragged the demon sword, nobody dared to get close to him. Sword light illuminated the heavens and earth as boundless sword whistles rang out in the air. The mournful wails of the sword gradually weakened, as though it was moved by Qin Wentian's obsession. Many people followed behind Qin Wentian. They only saw that everywhere Qin Wentian passed by, deep sword scars would be left behind. At this moment it was as though they gradually believed the legend of the demon sword descending from the heavens, breaking apart the cliff with a single slash. Qin Wentian took one step at a time, moving further and further away. At this place, there were people who soared up into the air, staring at the ground as their hearts pounded. Only to see that on the ground, there seemed to be a boundless crack that extended endlessly into the distance. Qin Wentian wanted to drag the demon sword, but where was he going? If he wanted to go to the moon continent, was he planning to extend the crack for 100,000 miles? A month later, there were people who followed Qin Wentian, while there were others who stayed outside the Sword Reverence City. But from then on, the rumors about Qin Wentian would never fade away, although he only stayed in the Sword Reverence City for 3 months. Today, the entire Rising Sun City was in an uproar. Outside the Rising Sun City, there was actually a young man whose arms transformed into demonic arms, dragging a 1,000-meter-long gigantic sword behind him. Everywhere he passed by, fissures would appear on the ground, and the sword chi wouldn't dissipate even after a long time. What was even more terrifying was that the sword keening never ceased, as though anything within 100 miles of him would be lacerated by the sword chi. The entire Rising Sun City was in an uproar as they stared at the young man dragging the ancient sword behind him. Nobody dared to block his path. Step by step, the young man stared into the distance, as though there was an incomparably strong obsession within him that even the heavens and earth couldn't obstruct him. Who was this kid? The people of Chaoyang City exclaimed in their hearts. However, they soon discovered that many people were following behind the young man. These people had followed Qin Wentian all the way from the Sword Reverence City, and from their conversations, they knew that this person was none other than the top ranker of the Heavenly Fate rankings, Qin Wentian. Where did this sword come from? This sword was a demonic beast that paid respects to the cliff. It remained unmoving throughout the ages, but once it was unsheathed, its blood dyed the cliff. The Li family and the Heavenly Sword sect were exterminated, and the Wang family's experts perished. Why did Qin Wentian do that? The Pill Emperor Hall had once promised Qin Wentian that as long as he defeated Zhang Chen in the Heavenly Fate rankings, they wouldn't interfere in the matters between him and the Pill Emperor Hall's Heaven's Chosen, Mo Qincheng. However, Luo He reneged on her words and wanted to select a husband for Mo Qincheng. In a fit of rage, Qin Wentian pulled out the demon sword that had remained unmoving since the ancient times, shocking the entire sword reverence city. Now, he wanted to drag the demon's sword along as he entered the moon continent. The people of Chaoyang City felt incomparably shocked in their hearts when they heard this. They actually followed behind Qin Wentian, wanting to personally witness how Qin Wentian would drag the demon sword into the moon continent. 2 months later, there were over 10,000 people following behind Qin Wentian within a radius of 100 miles. All of them were deeply affected by Qin Wentian's obsession. The reputation of the top ranker of the heavenly fate rankings was well deserved. If Qin Wentian was able to retreat safely from the moon continent, the Pill Emperor Hall would never be able to eat or sleep in peace. What made them even more shocked was that the demon sword that was 1,000 meters long seemed to be affected by Qin Wentian's obsession. Its body seemed to have become lighter and lighter, and although Qin Wentian still had no way to control it, he was able to drag the ancient sword along as he sprinted. Compared to the past, his speed was many times faster. The sword chi was even more terrifying. The sword scar on the ground extended for over 50,000 miles, it was an extremely majestic sight. This sword scar was most probably the longest in the entire Grand Xia Empire. Qin Wentian's speed grew even faster, fast and heavy. Every step he took was extremely strenuous, yet he didn't show any signs of giving up. He was actually able to cover a distance of 1,000 miles in a single day. In the blink of an eye, 3 months had already passed since Qin Wentian drew the sword in the sword reverence city. Qin Wentian dragged the gigantic sword along, the yuan energy in his body seemed to have been completely depleted. His footsteps grew increasingly sluggish. In the desolate wilderness, Qin Wentian continued advancing, passing mountains and rivers, circling lakes and treading on the yellow sands. His gaze was fixed ahead, and finally, a vast ancient city appeared in his vision. Behind him in the distance, many people were staring ahead. All of them had seen the ancient city. 3 months, Qin Wentian had done it. He actually used 3 months to arrive at the outskirts of the moon continent. They felt that these 3 months felt like 3 years. It was too far away. But unknowingly, they discovered that they had actually arrived. In the ancient moon continent, a number of silhouettes broke through the air. These people were naturally those from the transcendent powers who received the news. Among them, some were from the Pill Emperor Hall, some from the Star-Seizing Manor, and some from the Hua clan. These transcendent powers all had a grudge against Qin Wentian. Now that Qin Wentian had arrived at the moon continent, one could very well imagine how dangerous this place was. However, after these experts arrived, they didn't dare to advance. They halted their steps 10 miles away from Qin Wentian as they stared at Qin Wentian, as well as the gigantic sword that was 1,000 meters long. It was rumored that Qin Wentian used this sword to easily annihilate the experts from the Wang clan, destroying the Heavenly Sword sect and the Li clan. This sword was akin to a demon, it was unknown how powerful it was. Among those who arrived, there were those who were strong and those who were weak. Bai Fei was also among those from the Pill Emperor Hall. She stared at the young man who she had despised in the past, walking towards the moon continent with a single sword in his hands. Yet, nobody dared to obstruct him. Qin Wentian also saw them. He continued advancing towards the ancient city, his sword chi whistling through the air. The silhouettes all retreated one after another. Whenever Qin Wentian advanced, they would retreat. Madness. The spectators were all deeply shocked by Qin Wentian's determination. Qin Wentian advanced step by step, while the experts all retreated. When Qin Wentian stood outside the moon continent with the demon sword in his hands, those experts had already entered the depths of the city, vanishing without a trace. Nobody dared to get close to Qin Wentian. Tell Luo He that I will look for her. Qin Wentian's voice reverberated through the air along with the whistling of the sword. As the sound of his voice faded, a terrifying sword intent gushed forth from all directions. Within a radius of 10 miles around Qin Wentian, the spectators all turned and fled for their lives. Even those who were chasing after them also fled for their lives. The killing intent contained within this sword intent was too terrifying. Regardless of those from the transcendent powers, or those who came here to spectate, all of them fled far away from Qin Wentian. Outside the moon continent, only Qin Wentian remained, as well as that 1,000-meter-long demon sword. The sword whistled, the wind gusted by, so cold. Only after a long period of time did the sword intent storm gradually weaken, until it dissipated into nothingness. That's it. The sword intent actually dissipated. At this moment, many had looks of bewilderment on their faces. After which, their silhouettes flickered as they sped towards the outskirts of the city. But when they returned to the outskirts of the city, they were all dumbfounded. The demon sword stood erect in the air, pierced into the ground. The sword intent emanating from it had been retracted by too much, as though it was about to return to silence. Yet the silhouette of Qin Wentian had already vanished. Qin Wentian had left the demon sword outside the moon continent, yet he himself had disappeared. Qin Wentian, what was he planning to do exactly? Was it because he was powerless to enter the moon continent? But no matter what the reason was, this matter caused a terrifying storm to sweep through the moon continent in a very short period of time. Qin Wentian had once cultivated in the moon continent, becoming the youngest fourth-ranked grandmaster. He had participated in the heavenly fate rankings a year ago and obtained the first rank, creating a miracle. He stood together with Mo Qincheng, announcing their relationship. However, during the ranking battle, Qin Wentian had offended too many transcendent powers. Many believed that he would die for sure. He had even killed Zhang Chen, wanting to marry Mo Qincheng. Naturally, the Pill Emperor Hall would also be filled with resentment. Luo he decided to select a husband for Mo Qincheng. Because of this, Qin Wentian unsheathed the demon sword in the Sword Reverence City and dragged it for a distance of 10,000 miles to the moon continent. He told Luo he that he would look for her in the future. This matter caused a huge wave of commotion in the moon continent. Nobody dared to imagine that the top ranker of the heavenly fate rankings, Qin Wentian, would dare to challenge a transcendent power the moment he stepped into Heavenly Dipper. Back then, when Qin Wentian obtained the first rank in the heavenly fate rankings, his name shook Grand Xia. However, when compared to the second ranker, Qin Wentian, the things he did couldn't be compared to the other transcendent powers. Today, at the top of the Pill Emperor Hall, Luo he stood at the highest point, gazing down at the people of the moon continent. Her gaze was ice-cold, and behind her, there were many disciples. Only Mo Qincheng wasn't present. Master, what about the son-in-law selection? Behind her, Bai Fei asked in a low voice. Do it as per usual, the commotion must be grand and majestic. Luo He's voice was ice-cold. Qin Wentian actually dared to bring the demon sword into the moon continent. Was he trying to smack her, Luo He's face? She had heard that the demon sword could break the heavens, and hated the fact that the heavens were too low. She really wanted to see if Qin Wentian would dare to bring the demon sword into the Pill Emperor Hall. Yes, Master. Bai Fei bowed in acknowledgement, sighing silently in her heart. She had heard that her master was giving Mo Qincheng a final chance to choose a husband. If Mo Qincheng didn't agree, she would definitely anger her master, Luo He. The Bai Fei at this moment didn't know if she should rejoice or feel sorrowful. During these days, many transcendent powers of Grand Xia had gathered in the moon continent. They were all here for the sake of Mo Qincheng's son-in-law selection. Although marrying into the Pill Emperor Hall wasn't glorious, but if there was an outstanding young man among them who could marry Mo Qincheng, so what if he married into the Pill Emperor Hall? In that case, they would be implicated by the Pill Emperor Hall. In Grand Xia, who didn't want to have a good relationship with a transcendent power like the Pill Emperor Hall? The status of the Pill Emperor Hall in Grand Xia was extremely special. The various experts also heard of the matter regarding Qin Wentian, and they couldn't help but to sigh in their hearts at how audacious Qin Wentian was. They all headed to the outskirts of the moon continent, wanting to test out the demon sword, only to discover that no matter how strong they were, none of them could pull the demon sword out from the ground. Nobody could do it. Qin Wentian was the only one who could do it. Chapter 419. The matter of Qin Wentian wielding the demon sword and standing outside the moon continent caused a huge wave of commotion. Currently in Grand Xia, although there were many who didn't know of Qin Wentian, how many didn't know of the top ranker of the Heavenly Fate rankings? At the very least, in the 9 continents of Grand Xia, other than those who didn't care about external affairs, how could the others not know of Qin Wentian? During these days, there were many who came to try and pull out the demon sword, yet they had no way to do so. There were also many who came to admire the sword, wanting to see what was so special about it that other than Qin Wentian, no one else was able to pull it out. At this moment, a white-robed silhouette floated in the air. This man was handsome beyond compare, exuding an aura that stood out from the rest. Among the crowd, one could tell with a single glance that he was different from the rest. At the instant he appeared, the gazes of several people landed on him, as traces of worship could be seen in their eyes. Hua Taishu, the top ranker of the Heavenly Fate rankings. Back then, no one could shake his position. Not long ago, in the battle he revealed his cultivation base. He wasn't at the 2nd level of Heavenly Dipper, but was actually at the 3rd level instead. His combat prowess was so strong that it was terrifying. He even killed a 4th level Heavenly Dipper sovereign. That battle caused Hua Taishu's name to resound throughout the entire moon continent. Throughout the generations, the top rankers of the Heavenly Fate rankings would all become characters whose names shook Grand Xia. As long as they didn't die, they would definitely be ranked within the Heavenly Dipper rankings. And now, Hua Taishu was gradually advancing, revealing his brilliance. Given his current strength, he could be considered one of the more powerful characters in Grand Xia. If he was given a few more years, he would definitely become a character that stood at the peak of Grand Xia. And at this moment, Hua Taishu arrived here, staring at the demon sword that belonged to Qin Wentian. Hua Taishu, Qin Wentian. In Grand Xia, people loved to compare the two of them because in the eyes of the younger generations, the two of them represented 2 different eras, both being the top rankers of the Heavenly Fate rankings. The difference was that Hua Taishu was born in a prestigious clan, a heavens chosen of the transcendent power, the Hua clan. He had always been dazzling, like the sun in the sky, exuding magnificence throughout his generations. Qin Wentian was different. He seemed to have no background at all. The people he befriended were all young men of the same generation, but all of them were extremely outstanding characters. Back then when the Heavenly Fate rankings ended, there were many who were willing to fight alongside him on the Vermilion Bird Arena platform. Right now, Hua Taishu was here, observing the demon sword left behind by Qin Wentian. At this moment, Hua Taishu stepped out, staring at the demon sword. The demon sword was silent, emanating traces of sword intent. It was very different from the rumors. Everyone knew that the sword chi surrounding this sword towered up into the heavens, and from 100 miles away, one could feel the mournful wails of disrespect to the heavens and earth. Everywhere it passed, valleys would appear. But at this moment, it seemed to be in a deep slumber, and no one could wake it up. Hua Taishu stared at the demon sword for a long time before he turned and walked away. His countenance was as calm as ever, nobody knew what he was thinking about. After Hua Taishu left, another silhouette appeared in this space. Naturally, she wasn't the only one here, but just like Hua Taishu, the moment she appeared, the gazes of everyone were attracted over. Although her face was veiled by a veil, making it impossible to see her features, just a single glance was enough to stun the crowd, causing them to be unable to shift their gazes away. This was naturally a female, clean and tidy, without a single speck of dust on her. Cold, it was as though no one could get close to her. She was like a snow lotus on top of an ice mountain, standing proudly in the snow, proud and aloof, not wanting to mingle with the mortal world. How beautiful! Her appearance stunned the entire space. Although no one could see her face, just from her eyes, as well as her skin that was as smooth as water, everyone could feel the magnificence of this female. This was definitely a beauty that could dazzle the ages. Although the crowd was stunned by her beauty, nobody dared to approach her to profane her beauty. However, in her eyes, there was only that demon sword, as though she was thinking of something. She only stood there for a moment before turning and walking away, causing countless people to speculate in their hearts. Who was this female? Which transcendent power could produce such a breathtaking beauty? When the crowd finally reacted, they discovered that the silhouette had already vanished into thin air, completely disappearing without a trace. It was as though they were hallucinating, as though she had never appeared at all. Such a feeling caused them to feel a sense of loss, as though they wanted to take one more look at that female. This time around in the Moon Continent, there's no doubt that the Pill Emperor Hall is recruiting a son-in-law for Mo Qingqing. Given how breathtaking this female is, there's a high possibility that she's someone nurtured by a transcendent power, or maybe even the mystic Maiden Palace. In that case, we might be able to see her during the recruitment. I definitely have to go and take a look. Although they didn't dare to profane it, it was also good to take another look at it. Not only that, the Pill Emperor Hall was recruiting a son-in-law for Mo Qingqing, and Qin Wentian brought the demon sword back to the Moon Continent. Such a huge commotion, they originally wanted to head to the Pill Emperor Hall to take a look. Outside the Moon Continent, there was an endless stream of people, coming and going. The only thing that didn't change was that demon sword. It stood tall on the ground, as though it was going to stay there, unmoving for eternity. Only that person would be able to awaken it. Experts from the various transcendent powers arrived at the Moon Continent, and for a period of time, the atmosphere was extremely lively. This was especially so for the central region of the Moon Continent, which was under the control of the Pill Emperor Hall. Not long ago, Luo He had already announced to the world that the selection for Mo Qingqing's son-in-law would be held at the top of the 99 steps of the Pill Emperor Hall. For ordinary people, although they couldn't ascend the 99 steps, they could still stand at the bottom of the steps to spectate. For those below 30, with outstanding talent and an extraordinary appearance, they could all participate in the selection. Since this was a selection for the Pill Emperor Hall, firstly, the appearance of the chosen must not be too bad, or it would damage the image of the Pill Emperor Hall. Secondly, the age of the chosen must not be too old. After all, Mo Qingqing was in the prime of her life. How could she marry a middle-aged man or an old man? And of course, the most important thing was still strength and talent. As for background, that was the last thing the Pill Emperor Hall would consider. For the selection this time around, the top 3 in terms of strength would be chosen, and the Pill Emperor Hall would then decide on the final candidate. Although the rules didn't state clearly that they had to ask for the background of the candidate, the hearts of the spectators were as clear as a mirror. But no matter what, leaving aside the prestige of the Pill Emperor Hall, just based on Mo Qingqing's beauty, as well as her terrifying talent in alchemy, it was more than enough to move the hearts of the young geniuses. Although Mo Qingqing seemed to have feelings for Qin Wentian, the Pill Emperor Hall had already announced this matter to the world, and it was being held in the presence of Grand Xiao. Today, on the 99 flight of steps leading up to the Pill Emperor Hall, in a majestic hall, Luo He sat with her eyes closed on the main seat. Below her, Bai Fei and the other disciples were currently reporting the names of the participants of the son-in-law selection. Master, from the looks of it, all the transcendent powers have disciples participating. Although they aren't the most outstanding among them, they are all extraordinary characters. Bai Fei inclined her head as she respectfully reported to Luo He. Emichim. Luo He closed her eyes as she nodded her head lightly. Are there any names of Hua Taishu, Chen Wang and the others? Nope. Bai Fei replied. Luo He didn't say anything, she also knew that this selection was for the sake of the Pill Emperor Hall. Although the transcendent powers were all extremely concerned, they would still consider the pros and cons. It was impossible for them to allow a character like Hua Taishu to step out. If not, if the Pill Emperor Hall chose Hua Taishu, would the Hua clan allow Hua Taishu to marry into the Pill Emperor Hall? Are there any characters worthy of attention? Luo he asked again. Nope, I didn't discover any. Bai Fei shook her head. There are a few who aren't from a transcendent power, and their strength is only at the first level of Heavenly Dipper. But such characters would be easily eliminated. This time around, outstanding characters below the age of 30 who had just broken through to Heavenly Dipper naturally wouldn't stand a chance. Luo he nodded her head once more as she spoke. Go ask your junior sister, tell her that there are still 7 days left, and that is her final deadline. If she really wishes to disobey my orders, I will make her obey me. Bai Fei naturally understood the meaning behind her words. At that time, Mo Qingqing's heart would no longer be in her control. That night, the atmosphere in the Moon Continent was extremely quiet. However, outside the Moon Continent, a commotion broke out. Many people could feel the towering sword might, and when they sensed it, they discovered that the aura of the demon sword was soaring up into the heavens, heading in the direction of the Pill Emperor Hall. Along the way, many spectators flew up into the air to spectate. Early the next morning, the experts of the Pill Emperor Hall stood at the top of the 99 steps of stairs as they stared ahead. Over there, a terrifying ancient sword with a length of over 1,000 meters could be seen embedded into the ground. Although it was still some distance away from the Pill Emperor Hall, because the demon sword was too tall, it was too conspicuous. Regardless of who it was, they would be able to see it with a single glance. The meaning was clear even without words. This was already a provocation. Last night, when the sword Qi neared, many experts of the Pill Emperor Hall had already sensed it. However, although the sword intent was towering up into the heavens, it was only slowly inching closer. Initially, there were experts from the Pill Emperor Hall who tried to investigate, but when the sword Qi swept past them, they didn't dare to advance. And when the upper echelons of the Pill Emperor Hall acted, the pressure from the sword Qi was so great that they didn't dare to advance recklessly. Finally, when they arrived, the demon sword had already been embedded into the ground. As for the person controlling the sword, he was no longer there. Such a situation was already a great humiliation to the Pill Emperor Hall. They had as many experts as the clouds, yet they actually allowed a sword to be embedded into the ground within 10 miles of the Pill Emperor Hall. Luckily, Qin Wentian had no way to control the sword. If not, based on their conjectures, if Qin Wentian could control the sword, he would definitely be able to dominate all Heavenly Dipper sovereigns. Luo He's countenance turned ashen. Last night, she was also frightened by the sword intent and didn't dare to approach it. She simply didn't dare to imagine that back in Chu, this was the doing of a minor character that she wouldn't even spare a glance at. However, that sword was there, yet nobody was able to pull it out. Could it be that because of the provocation of a junior, the Pill Emperor Hall was going to mobilize their supreme elders? If that happened, the face of the Pill Emperor Hall would be completely thrown away, becoming the laughing stock of Grand Xiao. Mo Qingqing was currently imprisoned in a palace. Although she was restrained, she couldn't help but to feel bewildered when she sensed the sword intent. Where did the sword intent come from? Why was it so strong that it permeated the entire Pill Emperor Hall? Chapter 420. With the demon sword erected in front of the Pill Emperor Hall, the entire Moon Continent was in an uproar. Everyone was in awe of this matter. Back then, when the young man returned, he dragged the demon sword for 100,000 miles because of his love. This was to tell everyone that he, Qin Wentian, had returned and he would make Luo He pay the price for what she had done to him. However, the spectators didn't dare to imagine that although Qin Wentian had outstanding talent, his combat prowess was still too weak. How could someone at the first level of Heavenly Dipper contend against the Pill Emperor Hall? The experts of the Pill Emperor Hall were as common as the clouds. What the spectators saw was only the tip of the iceberg. If the true pillars of the Pill Emperor Hall were to be drawn out, they would definitely be extremely terrifying. Yet, Qin Wentian had no way to truly control the demon sword. If they really fell out, even if he dragged the demon sword and borrowed its might to sweep through the heavens and earth, he would still die without a doubt. What he was facing was a transcendent power of the moon continent, a transcendent power ranked within the top 5 in Grand Xia, the Pill Emperor Hall. Qin Wentian had the will to sever the heavens, but how could he do anything to the 99 steps of the sky connecting Grand Hall? The matter of the Pill Emperor Hall selecting a son-in-law for Mo Qingqing had already caused a huge commotion in the 9 continents. The number of people in the moon continent was innumerable, and now that Qin Wentian was standing right outside the Pill Emperor Hall, slapping Luo He's face, the commotion grew even more intense, as though a storm was brewing. Today, the day had finally arrived. In front of the Pill Emperor Hall, below the 99 steps of the sky connecting Grand Xia, there were silhouettes everywhere. However, they all avoided a certain location. Over there was only a single sword erected in the air, nobody dared to approach it. On the 99 steps of the Pill Emperor Hall, the silhouettes of the Pill Emperor Hall stood in the air. Among them, Luo He stood in the center. With a single glance, she could already see the demon sword as her countenance turned exceptionally cold. Qin Wentian slapped her face like that. She wanted to see how Qin Wentian would dare to show up today. If he came, she would make sure that he wouldn't be able to return. Shifting his gaze over, Luo He spoke, "Friends from the various transcendent powers, please ascend the 99 steps. For this selection of son-in-law, we welcome all of you to be our witnesses." As soon as she finished speaking, many figures walked out. They were all from the overlord forces of the 9 states. They stepped onto the 99 steps and came to the wide square in front of the main hall of the King of Elixirs and sat down. Those who have signed up for this selection, please stand below the 90th step. Luo He continued speaking. Momentarily, several silhouettes stepped up, squeezing their way towards the 90th step. In an instant, the 90th step was filled with silhouettes, with no gaps at all. If those at the back wanted to ascend, they would have to force them down first. There are so many people. The participants for this selection are all Heavenly Dipper sovereigns below the age of 30. Not only that, all of them have extraordinary looks. If not, it would be too shameful if they were kicked out because of their looks. As for those below the Heavenly Dipper sovereigns, wanting to marry Mo Qingqing is nothing but a fool's dream. The Pill Emperor Hall is recruiting a son-in-law, and it's for the sake of Mo Qingqing. No wonder there are so many outstanding characters participating. Leaving aside the transcendent powers, even the transcendent powers below them have sent out their most outstanding characters. If one of them could become the son-in-law of the Pill Emperor Hall and marry Mo Qingqing, the status of his or her sect or clan would surely skyrocket. However, how could it be so easy to walk all the way to the end? In the time it takes for an incense stick to burn, only those who stand on the 90th step will have the qualifications to enter the Pill Emperor Hall and participate in this selection. Luo He continued, after the time it takes for an incense stick to burn, as long as you are still standing on the 90th step, you can continue onwards. Now, let the selection begin. As the sound of her voice faded, the atmosphere abruptly tensed up. The number of experts on the 99 steps were as many as the clouds, it was extremely congested. Luo He would only select those who stood on the 90th step. At this moment, those who stood on the 90th step all felt a terrifying pressure bearing down on them. The auras of those below them were extremely terrifying. Their astral souls and astral novas were frenziedly released, and in an instant, a terrifying chi current gushed forth. The eruption of the battle was even faster and more violent than what the spectators had imagined. Just a single sentence from Luo He had caused the entire crowd to erupt into a frenzy. The spectators only felt their hearts pounding violently as they stared at this terrifying battle. Over there, fresh blood splattered everywhere as screams of misery rang out unceasingly. In just a short instant, it was unknown how many experts had been killed or heavily injured. This was too cruel. Although Luo he was the daughter of the Pill Emperor of the Pill Emperor Hall, she wasn't a benevolent person. Her state of heart was cold, and she chose the most direct and cruel method of selection. There are a few people who are so strong, nobody can blast them off the platform. Very swiftly, the spectators noticed a few dazzling characters. Their cultivation bases were all at the second or third level of Heavenly Dipper. For those below the age of 30, being able to reach the third level of Heavenly Dipper was already an extremely terrifying feat among the transcendent powers. Only the most outstanding demon-level geniuses would be able to achieve this. As for those at the fourth level of Heavenly Dipper, they didn't see anyone. Reaching the fourth level of Heavenly Dipper before the age of 30 was simply too terrifying. Even Hua Taishu wouldn't be able to achieve this. A cultivator at the third level of Heavenly Dipper was already at the peak of this selection. As for those at the first level of Heavenly Dipper, they were the weakest and were easily blasted off the platform. Some of their injuries were light and some deep, but they didn't even have the strength to continue climbing up. Those who can stand on the 90th step are mostly from the transcendent powers. Chen Lai from the Chen clan was also extremely famous back then. He's the elder brother of Chen Wang, and although his talent isn't as high as Chen Wang's, his cultivation base is higher than Chen Wang's. Not only that, he was also a famous ranker on the Heavenly Fate rankings. Isn't Hua Cheng from the Hua clan here as well? Although his brilliance was completely suppressed by Hua Taishu, he himself is also an extremely powerful character. Seems like there are many geniuses who want to win the heart of the beauty this time around. That's Wang Yifei from the Wang clan from the War Continent. I heard that not long ago, Wang Ju was killed by Qin Wentian. I don't know if this is true or not, but rumor has it that Wang Ju died when Qin Wentian pulled out the demon sword. If this is true, the Wang clan would definitely hate Qin Wentian to the bone. If Qin Wentian appeared today, who knows how miserable his fate would be. The Chen clan, Hua clan, Wang clan, who wouldn't want him to die? Not to mention the Pill Emperor Hall and the Star-Seizing Manor, would they be able to spare him? This Qin Wentian is truly a demon-level genius who dares to contend against the entire world. But from the looks of it, he would either fall here today, or become an unparalleled character. That's how the Azure Emperor died back then. I'm afraid that Qin Wentian won't be able to escape. The spectators murmured as they thought of Qin Wentian. Ever since Qin Wentian rose to prominence, although he had only accomplished 2 to 3 things, his actions were simply too sensational. Not only that, there was a high possibility that he would come here today to cause trouble. His demon sword was erected in front of the Pill Emperor Hall. He would definitely not allow this son-in-law selection to go smoothly. Who is that man? He's so handsome, and with a cultivation base at the first level of Heavenly Dipper, he can actually stand on the 90th step. Nobody can blast him off the 90th step. At this moment, someone pointed his finger at a silhouette standing on the 90th step. This person wielded an ancient halberd, and his attacks were tyrannical to the extreme. No matter who tried to attack his position, he would simply strike out with his halberd. Nobody would be able to withstand his attacks. At this moment, a cultivator at the second level of Heavenly Dipper dashed towards him. This person wielded a lightning sword in his hands, and a terrifying amount of lightning energy erupted forth. His astral nova shone with a terrifying light, yet he still managed to block the attack with his halberd. This halberd strike was like a dream, yet when it landed, an irresistible force directly penetrated through the lightning sword, slamming into the chest of that cultivator, causing that cultivator to cough out blood as he fell to the ground. The time it takes for an incense stick to burn passed very quickly. When Luo he announced the end of the selection, only 48 cultivators remained on the 90th step. All of you, come up. For the others, you can either stand on the 99 steps or watch from below. Luo he waved her hands as she turned and walked towards the host's seat. The 48 cultivators followed her up the 99 steps, arriving at the center of the vast public square. Around them were the transcendent powers from the various transcendent powers. As for the others, they were either hovering in the air or standing on top of the stairs, staring up at the sky. Although the time it took for an incense stick to burn had only passed, the 48 cultivators who remained were all elites. Each and every one of them exuded an extraordinary aura. Among them, there were several young men from the various transcendent powers. Those from the transcendent powers all had smiles on their faces. If they could marry Imo, so what if they had to marry into the Pill Emperor Hall? This would undoubtedly improve their relationship with the Pill Emperor Hall. Luo He sat on the host's seat. Imo was her disciple, hence today's selection would be presided over by her. Only to see her gaze turning into the horizons as she stared at the demon sword that was several times taller than the seat she was sitting on. A cold light flickered in her eyes. She wanted to see when Qin Wentian would appear, daring to cause trouble in the Pill Emperor Hall. Retracting her gaze, she turned her gaze onto the 48 cultivators as she casually stated, "All of you are handsome and outstanding, and have decent combat prowess. For this selection, there's no need to determine the rankings, we only need to select 3. In that case, the rules will be as you wish. From now on, all of you can choose your own opponents. The loser shall leave, the winner shall remain." As the sound of her voice faded, the silhouettes of the participants flickered as they chose their opponents. There were still many more challenges waiting for them, hence for the earlier battles, they naturally had to choose those with weaker combat prowess. The Swallow Swordsman, Han Qing, chose an opponent at the first level of Heavenly Dipper. This person was also the only one at the first level of Heavenly Dipper. He wielded an ancient halberd in his hands, exuding a tyrannical aura. But after all, he was only at the first level of Heavenly Dipper, how strong could he be? Han Qing stood in front of the halberd wielder, his countenance calm as he stared at him. "Swallow Swordsman, Han Qing. Please guide me." As the sound of his voice faded, the sword in his hands emitted a humming sound. The corners of Han Qing's lips curled up slightly. Although his words were polite, his tone was filled with disdain. Chapter 421. Han Qing was also extremely famous in the Yan Prefecture. Now that he had a cultivation base at the second level of Heavenly Dipper, his swordplay was as fast as the wind. Out of his 4 astral souls, 2 were speed-type astral souls, while the other 2 were sword-type astral souls. What he pursued was precisely speed. There was no need to doubt the attacking prowess of the sword. Hence, as long as one had sufficient speed, they could easily defeat their opponent. At this moment, the young man standing opposite of Han Qing had a cultivation base at the first level of Heavenly Dipper. Although he was extremely powerful, Han Qing was confident that his opponent wouldn't be able to last more than 10 moves. Opposite of Han Qing, the young man wielding the ancient halberd could clearly see the slight smile on Han Qing's face. However, there was no expression on his face. No one knew what he was thinking in his heart. The others also found their own opponents. 48 people, a total of 24 battles. Luckily, the public square was large enough to support their battles. "Please guide me." The young man wielding the ancient halberd calmly spoke. As the sound of his voice faded, Han Qing casually smiled, "Sir, be careful." As the sound of his voice faded, his sword was like the wind. His silhouette was enveloped by the wind, transforming into a series of afterimages, as fast as lightning. His sword, startling wind, was like a mirage. The moment the sword struck out, the halberd-wielding young man seemed to have all of his escape routes firmly sealed off. No matter which direction he dodged to, as long as there was a slight change in his opponent's sword move, he would immediately be able to take advantage of it. However, the halberd-wielding young man didn't seem to have any intentions of evading. Qin Wentian took a small step forward. It was as though this single step caused the entire space to move with him. He was like the ruler of this space. The ancient halberd in his hands abruptly pierced out, tyrannical like a dragon, pressing forward with an indomitable will. Wind Shadow. His opponent released his will of mandates. Han Qing's body seemed to have transformed into the shadow of the wind. His body seemed to have suddenly disappeared, hidden within the wind. However, the sword qi he released was still as strong as ever. A cold light flashed, startling wind, piercing towards the halberd-wielding young man. This thrilling scene caused the spectators to sigh in admiration at the exquisiteness of this sword technique that was infused with mandates. With such speed, the halberd-wielding young man had no way to defend against it. But at this moment, a thunderous sound rang out. The ancient halberd actually collided head-on with the sword. There wasn't the slightest bit of sloppiness. This strike was clean and could be said to be perfect. Those who were paying attention to the battle were momentarily stunned. How did the halberd-wielding youth do it? Han Qing had transformed into a gust of wind, and when his sword had struck out, it had already descended upon the halberd-wielding youth's body. But how was it that Han Qing was able to use his ancient halberd to block the opponent's sword? Naturally, there were also those who clearly saw the movements of the halberd-wielding young man. They were even more shocked because they discovered that at the instant Han Qing's silhouette disappeared, the ancient halberd of the young man was already moving. There wasn't the slightest bit of hesitation in his movements, it accurately retracted for an instant before explosively blasting out. Coincidentally, the sword of his opponent appeared. It was as though the halberd-wielding young man was able to predict where Han Qing's sword would strike from. This caused the spectators to feel a chill in their hearts. Han Qing's wind shadow was formless and formless. That was the power of a second-level mandate, yet his opponent was actually able to accurately counter it with no hesitation at all. Han Qing also believed that even if he couldn't instantly defeat his opponent, it would at least cause his opponent to be flustered. After which, his startling wind sword would be able to cause his opponent to suffer a crushing defeat. However, things didn't go as he wished. When the ancient halberd collided with his sword, he actually felt an irresistible force directly blasting into his chest. It was as though the force of the halberd had traveled through space, causing his body to be battered by waves of terrifying energy. Pooh! Coughing out a mouthful of fresh blood, Han Qing explosively retreated. However, he only saw his opponent chasing after him with lightning speed. Han Qing's countenance paled as he howled, "I admit defeat." As the sound of his voice faded, the silhouette of the halberd-wielding young man landed cleanly on the ground. His countenance didn't fluctuate in the slightest. This battle was the quickest to end, causing many to cast a few more glances at the young man as shock filled their hearts. This young man had a cultivation base at the first level of Heavenly Dipper, yet he was able to cause Han Qing to vomit blood with a single strike. He was definitely an extraordinary character, yet they didn't recognize him at all. In the entire 9 prefectures of Grand Xia, they had never heard of a young genius wielding an ancient halberd. Unless, this young man wasn't someone from the 9 prefectures, and had never roamed around the 9 continents before, which was why he didn't attract any attention. But now, he was here for the Pill Emperor Hall's son-in-law selection. Did he want to make a name for himself with a single battle? Not long after, the first battle ended. On the public square, only 24 people remained. The majority of these 24 are actually geniuses from the transcendent powers. The silhouette at the entrance of the Pill Emperor Hall stared at these people. Would Mo Qingqing's future husband be chosen from among these people? Who would be the final victor? Let's continue, find your opponents and defeat them. Luo He's voice was serene, as though she was speaking of an insignificant matter. The instant the sound of her voice faded, other than a select few, the others all moved. They wanted to find the easiest opponent to defeat. Only then would they be able to proceed further down the rankings. Although the halberd-wielding young man had defeated Han Qing, his cultivation base was after all only at the first level of Heavenly Dipper. Compared to the other participants, many felt that it would be easier to deal with him. Hence, there were 3 people who dashed towards him at the same time. However, the person closest to the halberd-wielding young man was the first to act. That person didn't give the other two any chance, he directly acted against the halberd-wielding young man. The instant he acted, it meant that he had already chosen his opponent. There was no room for others to interfere. But at the instant he moved, the halberd-wielding young man also moved. His speed was like a bolt of lightning, fast. The halberd-wielding young man's speed was in no way slower than Han Qing's wind shadow. In a flash, his ancient halberd violently slashed out. This strike contained no feints, it was the most direct, most tyrannical halberd strike. In fact, it couldn't even be considered an innate technique. It was merely a halberd strike. This seemingly ordinary halberd strike caused everyone to feel as if it was the only thing left in the entire area. The young man attacking the halberd-wielding young man was also at the second level of Heavenly Dipper. When he gathered his strength and counterattacked, the howl of a ferocious beast could be heard as he transformed into an incomparably terrifying flood dragon. His body was akin to the body of a flood dragon as his gigantic palm imprint slammed towards the ancient halberd. Ayo! Just like his previous battle with Han Qing, he ended the battle with a single move. He was still the fastest person to do so. Although this young man with a halberd cultivation base is relatively weak, most of the rest of the people present are Heavenly Dipper Realm third-layer experts, but the strength of 2 consecutive games still makes him attract enough attention. However, the next winner will be the existence of the third stage of the Heavenly Dipper Realm. I'm afraid that the halberd youth will stop here. And as expected, after this battle ended, the remaining 12 participants, other than the halberd-wielding young man, were all existences at the third level of Heavenly Dipper. Not only that, every single one of them was a famous character. The halberd-wielding young man standing at the top seemed to be a little out of place. Chen Lai, Wang Yifei, Hua Cheng, Shi Kuang, Xiao Yu, etc. Which one of them wasn't a famous character? Luo He stared at the remaining 12, her countenance as calm as ever. Among these 12, there were many extraordinary characters. However, Luo He wasn't satisfied with any of them. After all, none of them were the most outstanding among the transcendent powers. But now, what she wanted was no longer to choose a good husband for Mo Qingcheng. Lifting her gaze, Luo He stared at the towering demon sword far away. He hasn't appeared yet. She wanted to see how long he could endure after bringing the demon sword into the moon continent. Continue. Luo He's voice was devoid of any emotions. She didn't even set any rules, she merely allowed the battles to continue. In the end, only 3 would remain. As for who she would choose, she had already made up her mind long ago. It didn't matter anymore because this wasn't her most important goal. This Luo He actually only set such a simple rule, allowing them to continue being eliminated. The hearts of the spectators were filled with shock. But in a battle like this, there was a possibility that the stronger ones would be eliminated by the stronger ones. This time around, the movements of those participants actually slowed down. After which, some of them started walking towards their opponents. Xiao Yu chose the halberd-wielding young man. Seems like the outcome of this battle has already been decided. What sort of character is Xiao Yu? Among the younger generation of Heavenly Dipper sovereigns from the star-seizing manor, he can be ranked within the top 3. The halberd-wielding young man was as calm as ever, as though he would always be like this. Bang! Xiao Yu stepped out, his palms seizing the stars. His terrifying star-seizing palm imprint annihilated the entire space as a terrifying astral light flashed, as though he wanted to kill the halberd-wielding young man with a single strike. The halberd-wielding young man slashed out with an indomitable will, as though this was the only halberd art he knew. However, when the ancient halberd collided with the terrifying star-seizing palm imprint, it actually shattered into pieces. Xiao Yu coldly snorted. How could a mere first-level Heavenly Dipper sovereign defend against his star-seizing palm imprint? With a flick of his sleeves, his palms abruptly expanded as he blasted out yet another palm strike. This time around, the halberd-wielding young man was enveloped by astral light, akin to a prison. Xiao Yu's palm strike wanted to pluck the stars and reap his life. Bang! Terrifying astral energy erupted from the location of the halberd-wielding young man as the star-seizing palm imprint crushed everything in its path. However, at this very moment, a whistling sound rang out as those from the star-seizing manor abruptly stood up. Their countenances froze as they stared at the scene before them. The ancient halberd had directly pierced into Xiao Yu's throat. Xiao Yu thought that this strike should have ended the battle. But in that instant, the halberd-wielding young man actually appeared behind Xiao Yu, directly piercing through Xiao Yu's heart. The halberd-wielding young man had his back facing Xiao Yu. The other end of the ancient halberd was still dripping with fresh blood, and the sound of his voice caused the hearts of those who heard it to tremble. The halberd-wielding young man had killed Xiao Yu from the star-seizing manor. The Venerate Heavens sect also sent out experts to participate in this matter. The countenances of those from the star-seizing manor turned ashen. This technique, stellar transposition, was one of the 9 ultimate arts of Grand Xiao. The Venerate Heavens sect was the most proficient in using this technique. The halberd-wielding young man slowly turned around as he pulled out his ancient halberd. Xiao Yu's body fell to the ground as he stared at those from the star-seizing manor with an ice-cold countenance. Naturally, he wasn't someone from the Venerate Heavens sect. He was none other than Qin Wentian. He suppressed all his anger because he had yet to see Mo Qincheng. He also couldn't sense where she was. Hence, he could only use the disguise technique he obtained from Di Feng to alter his appearance. He had to take the risk of participating in the Pill Emperor Hall's son-in-law selection. He needed a chance to interact with Mo Qincheng. Chapter 422. Luo He's eyes similarly flashed with sharpness as she stared at Qin Wentian. Stellar transposition was a technique controlled by the Venerate Heavens sect, but ever since the Heavenly Fate Rankings battle, the 9 ultimate arts of Grand Xia had been circulated to the public. Chen Wang and Shi Patian had both cultivated the stellar transposition. Hence, it wasn't strange for the Chen clan and Shi clan to have hidden experts who wished to marry Mo Qincheng. What truly caused Luo He to be taken aback was that whenever this man fought, he would always use the simplest and most effective methods to defeat his opponents. She couldn't even tell what innate techniques or mandates he was proficient in. If that was the case, she wouldn't be able to see through his true identity. However, after this battle, those who fought against him in the next round would definitely have to treat him seriously. Proficient in the stellar transposition technique, if one was like Xiao Yu and was the slightest bit careless, they would definitely be killed in a single strike. Although those from the star-seizing manor were enraged, they couldn't do anything to Qin Wentian. However, they had already decided that after this matter was concluded, they would definitely investigate the identity of this person. This person actually showed no mercy, slaughtering those from the star-seizing manor. After this round of battles ended, there were only 6 people left standing in the public square. After another round of battles, 3 of them would be eliminated, leaving behind only 3. Currently, the remaining 6 were Chen Lai, Wang Yifei, Hua Cheng, Shi Kuang, Long Yan, and Qin Wentian. Chen Lai, from the great Solar Chen clan, the elder brother of Chen Wang. Wang Yifei, from the Wang clan. Hua Cheng, from the Hua clan. Shi Kuang, from the Shi clan. Long Yan, from the Beast King Hall. Only Qin Wentian, who wielded the ancient halberd, no one was able to see through him. The 6 of you will be eliminated one by one. A cold light flickered in Luo He's eyes. As the sound of her voice faded, the gazes of the crowd turned to the 6 people standing in the middle of the public square. Luo He actually allowed them to engage in such a chaotic battle. Chen Lai's eyes were like flames, flickering with light. The great solar bloodline in his body seethed as a heaven-scorching aura gushed forth, causing people to not dare to approach him. Chen Wang obtained the secret technique and the revolving star transposition technique. This Chen Lai, it is very likely that he also cultivated, coupled with his Heavenly Dipper realm 3rd stage strength, who knows how strong he is. Nobody dared to make a move against Chen Lai. There was a high possibility that Luo He of the Pill Emperor Hall would choose him. Chen Wan stood in the direction of the Chen clan, his eyes gleaming. In this battle, Chen Lai would definitely become one of the top 3 rankers and he would marry Mo Qingcheng. Today, he would like to see if Qin Wentian would show up. His eyes coldly stared at the demon sword in the distance. He hoped that Qin Wentian wouldn't disappoint them. Chen Lai didn't move, neither did Wang Yifei. As for Hua Cheng and Shi Kuang, their gazes collided with each other. The two of them advanced towards each other, and an instant later, an intense battle erupted. Hua Cheng and Shi Kuang were both exceedingly powerful, and their attacks were incomparably violent. As for the others, they merely watched the two of them fight, not moving at all. "You go and ambush one of them." A voice drifted into Qin Wentian's ears, causing his countenance to stiffen. This was the voice of Chen Lai. It seemed like these people had been secretly communicating with each other. Qin Wentian didn't move, he continued standing there quietly, waiting. Chen Lai's brows twitched as he coldly stated, "I'll give you one more chance." Qin Wentian still didn't move. After which, he saw the flame dragon walking towards him, while Wang Yifei walked towards the battle between Hua Cheng and Shi Kuang. The arms of the flame dragon transforming into the arms of a terrifying demonic beast. Terrifying demonic chi gushed forth from his eyes. The flame dragon of the Beast King Hall was also a half-beastman, possessing the blood of a flame dragon. His strength was tyrannical, and he was extremely lustful and greedy. "That woman will definitely be mine," the flame dragon icily stated, and as the sound of his voice faded, he lunged towards Qin Wentian, his speed as fast as lightning. His demonic arms blasted out towards Qin Wentian as a terrifying flame dragon claw manifested in the air. In the center of his palms, terrifying streams of flames could be seen, capable of melting the bodies of humans into liquid. The flame dragon had a cultivation base at the 3rd level of Heavenly Dipper. The pressure he unleashed was extremely tyrannical. On the tip of the ancient halberd in Qin Wentian's hands, a powerful surge of energy gushed forth. Qin Wentian stared at the flame dragon as he blasted out explosively. This halberd strike was akin to an illusion, instantly descending upon Qin Wentian. The flame dragon coldly snorted as his palms smashed downwards, wanting to clash head-on with Qin Wentian's ancient halberd. However, right at this instant, a thunderous rumbling sound rang out as Qin Wentian's silhouette vanished from sight. At the instant he vanished, astral light flashed as Chen Lai appeared beside the flame dragon. A terrifying great solar universe palm imprint blasted out as both his palms blasted out simultaneously. One was aimed at the flame dragon, while the other was aimed at Qin Wentian. However, Qin Wentian's silhouette had already appeared in another battlefield. Wang Yifei and Hua Cheng joined forces to attack Shi Kuang, but at the instant Qin Wentian appeared, the ancient halberd that was supposed to be aimed at the flame dragon, unhesitatingly shot towards Hua Cheng instead. Now that these experts were clashing, they wouldn't give you a chance to kill in a single strike. One of Hua Cheng's astral novas, a gigantic saber, directly slashed out, blocking in front of him. However, Shi Kuang's astral nova was also slammed over. This astral nova of his was in the form of an incomparably gigantic stone golem, and it directly slammed its palms into the gigantic saber that sliced through the air. At the same time, Shi Kuang's silhouette vanished as he reappeared in the air above Hua Cheng. Punching out with his fist, it felt as though a mountain peak was crashing down on Hua Cheng. "Wang Yifei!" Hua Cheng roared. But at this instant, the astral nova in Wang Yifei's hands erupted forth. It wasn't aimed at Shi Kuang, nor was it aimed at Qin Wentian. Instead, it was aimed at Hua Cheng. In that instant, Hua Cheng's countenance paled. His teammates who had joined forces with him earlier had instantly turned into enemies. With a pincer attack from 3 directions, Hua Cheng would definitely die. Bang! In the air, Shi Kuang's attacks were extremely violent. The instant his attacks landed, Hua Cheng's blood and qi churned violently from the impact. Wang Yifei's long spear sealed off all possible escape routes, while Qin Wentian's ancient halberd pierced out with indomitable might. "I concede!" Hua Cheng roared. Wang Yifei's long spear transformed from a stab into a slap, abruptly slamming into Hua Cheng's back, causing him to be flung forwards. With a light piercing sound, Qin Wentian's ancient halberd directly pierced through the center of Hua Cheng's brows, causing the countenances of those from the Hua clan to turn cold. However, the battle didn't have the slightest pause. After Qin Wentian killed Hua Cheng, Wang Yifei immediately acted. Numerous astral novas whistled through the air, each of them exuding a terrifying killing intent that towered up to the heavens. They pierced through the air, aiming for Qin Wentian's body. Qin Wentian stepped out as astral light erupted forth. With no hesitation, he executed stellar transposition and vanished from his original location. When his silhouette reappeared, he was already in the air. And at this moment, Chen Lai had already defeated Yen Long. He slowly walked over, and upon seeing Hua Cheng's death, a cold light flickered in his eyes. Only 4 people remained. In that case, things would be much easier. Do you want to scram yourself, or do you want us to force you to? Wang Yifei's countenance was ice cold, as he stared at Qin Wentian in the air. Qin Wentian noticed that the gazes of those 3 people were all fixed on him. It would be extremely difficult to deal with these 3 people. Their 12 astral novas were more than enough to suppress him. There was no way he could fight against them, unless he thought of a way to kill one more of them. Although the Luo River clan only needs the top 3 rankers, there's still a need for a ranking. If you guys kill me, the following battles wouldn't be so easy. Qin Wentian transmitted his voice into the ears of the 3 people. The eyes of the 3 flickered with sharpness, yet none of them replied. They only stared at Qin Wentian. As for what they were planning in their hearts, only they themselves would know. The 4 of them each had their own ulterior motives. My combat prowess is the weakest. Even if I manage to enter the top 3, I won't pose a threat to you in the end. Why must you be in such a hurry to eliminate me? Qin Wentian transmitted his voice again. The eyes of the 3 flickered with sharpness, but to Chen Lai and the other 2, they had no idea if Qin Wentian was speaking to only one of them or to all of them. Die! Wang Yifei stepped out, moving towards Qin Wentian. 3 astral novas floated in front of him, as the terrifying long spear astral novas exuded a fearsome sharpness. Chen Lai and Shi Kuang also stepped out, encircling Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian's countenance was ice cold, as he continued transmitting his voice to the 3 of them. Naturally, the words he spoke were all different. Finally, when Wang Yifei's 3 astral novas exploded forth, Qin Wentian also rushed towards Wang Yifei. Shi Kuang's countenance turned cold, abruptly turning his body to face Wang Yifei as he madly slammed out with his palms. Initially, Chen Lai didn't move. But now that the situation was clear, he naturally wouldn't mind adding hail to snow on top of snow for Wang Yifei. Hence, the 3 of them instantly surrounded Wang Yifei. Just like what Qin Wentian had said, Wang Yifei was the only one who didn't know the stellar transposition innate technique. Eliminating him would be the easiest. I concede. Wang Yifei's countenance paled when he saw Shi Kuang and Chen Lai's astral novas rushing towards him. The 3 of them all knew the stellar transposition innate technique, and if they used it at the same time, he would die without a doubt. Hence, he could only unwillingly concede. He had been tricked by the halberd-wielding young man. At the instant he conceded, a strange change occurred. Chen Lai's astral novas didn't continue blasting towards him. Instead, they directly bypassed him and shot towards Shi Kuang. At the same time, Chen Lai's silhouette vanished from sight. This was the stellar transposition innate technique. Qin Wentian also vanished, rushing towards Shi Kuang. The 2 of them seemed to have already discussed this beforehand. This was the plan Qin Wentian had told Chen Lai, and Qin Wentian was extremely cooperative in executing it. Chen Lai was naturally very satisfied, because as long as he could finish off Shi Kuang, Qin Wentian would be a dead man. At that time, there would no longer be a need to choose who Mo Qingqing belonged to. Shi Kuang's body was clad in a golden dragon battle armor, but how tyrannical was Chen Lai's attacks. When he cooperated with Qin Wentian, they directly executed the stellar transposition innate technique, disregarding the consumption of astral energy in their bodies as they frenziedly launched an encirclement. The spectators couldn't help but feel fear in their hearts. Finally, under the pressure of Chen Lai, Shi Kuang was pierced through by Qin Wentian's ancient halberd, causing his internal organs to tremble violently. Qin Wentian could feel the madness of his opponent, and with a ferocious flick of his ancient halberd, he flung Shi Kuang away. And at this moment, Chen Lai and Qin Wentian were almost face to face. Without any hesitation, a malevolent smile flickered in Chen Lai's eyes. In the air, a flame venerate blasted out a terrifying great solar palm imprint. Chen Lai's left hand directly grabbed onto the ancient halberd that Qin Wentian had just retracted, while his right hand blasted out a terrifying flame dragon, capable of devouring everything. Boom! A terrifying sword intent abruptly erupted forth. In an instant, a king's sword instantly penetrated through the body of the flame dragon, bringing with it a boundless sword intent as it shot towards Chen Lai. Chen Lai's countenance stiffened, yet another flame venerate soared through the air, lunging towards Qin Wentian. However, in that instant, Qin Wentian's silhouette vanished from sight. A terrifying sword hum rang out in the air, and Chen Lai only felt a boundless sword intent revolving around him. His body similarly soared through the air, and both of their silhouettes vanished. Bang, bang, bang. In the air, astral energy unceasingly erupted forth. The two of them actually used stellar transposition consecutively, to the point where even their silhouettes couldn't be seen. How terrifying would such a rate of consumption be? The hearts of the spectators trembled. Was this a war of attrition? Luckily, this was the final battle. Bzzz, the keening of a sword rang out. After which, the spectators only saw Chen Lai's silhouette appearing. Both of his hands were clutching his throat as fresh blood flowed unceasingly. Beside him, Qin Wentian quietly stood there, a sword in his hands. This sword strike was extremely light, and its attack power wasn't very strong. But when used together with the stellar transposition, Qin Wentian seized the opportunity to kill Qin Wentian in a single strike. In fact, the spectators couldn't even see how that sword pierced through. They only saw a flash of cold light flickering in their eyes. It was too fast. Chen Lai, dead, Shi Kuang, grievously injured. Out of the top three, only Qin Wentian remained unharmed. Was this the ultimate goal of Qin Wentian? Scheming step by step until he killed Chen Lai. This young man was truly terrifying. Those from the Chen clan stood up, coldly staring at Qin Wentian as killing intent permeated the air. Even Luo He stood up, staring at Qin Wentian. Senior Luo He, do we still need to choose? Qin Wentian spoke. At this moment, he no longer had any competitors. In this place, he was the only one left. Although the spectators didn't understand how a first-level Heavenly Dipper sovereign could achieve such a feat, they knew that Qin Wentian had truly relied on his true strength to kill Chen Lai in a single strike. Even if Chen Lai was stronger than him, he still wouldn't be able to escape from that resplendent sword strike. Luo He, could she choose a dead person or a grievously injured one? It seemed like she could only choose him. Chapter 423. Luo He stared at Qin Wentian. The appearance of this person had completely disrupted her plans. She cast a glance at the demon sword in the distance, but the person she was waiting for had yet to appear. Who are you? Which power are you from? Luo He coldly asked. Junior's name is Si Yen, I'm not from any power and have always cultivated alone. Now that the selection has ended, would Senior Luo he allow Miss Qingqing to meet with me? Qin Wentian had a smile on his face, as though he couldn't wait any longer. Anyone who could marry a woman like Qingqing would definitely feel proud of themselves. And now, Luo he wanted to choose from the three of them. Si Yen. Luo he pondered over this name. Surnamed Si, and was proficient in stellar transposition. She couldn't help but wonder if this person was from the same place as Si Qiong back then. Bring Qingqing here. Luo he indifferently commanded. Momentarily, the people behind her departed. Qin Wentian's heart involuntarily trembled, yet he forced himself to remain calm. At this moment, he couldn't afford to panic. Today, he had to bring Qingqing away, no matter the cost. Luo he didn't let her guard down. She stared at him as she slowly spoke, "You said that you're not from any power. In that case, where did you cultivate stellar transposition?" "The elders in my clan taught me." Qin Wentian smiled. Since he had displayed his stellar transposition, Luo he would definitely question him further. Not to mention, there weren't many powers that could use stellar transposition. He had already assumed the name Si Yen because he wanted Luo he to misunderstand. "Is that so? Where is your clan? Would the elders in your clan allow you to marry into the Pill Emperor Hall?" Luo he coldly asked. "Naturally. The elders in my clan have been meticulous in nurturing my elder brothers, yet they didn't care about me at all, allowing me to wander wherever I want. There's nothing wrong with me joining the Pill Emperor Hall, not to mention that I'm a beauty." Qin Wentian calmly replied, as though he had long prepared his words, hinting that his elder brothers in his clan were more outstanding than him. "You still haven't answered my earlier question. Where is your clan?" Luo he continued. "Not in Grand Xia." Qin Wentian faintly replied. Luo he coldly replied, "If not in Grand Xia, then where?" "Senior, why is there a need to ask so clearly?" Qin Wentian suppressed the fluctuations in his heart, appearing as calm as the clouds and wind, giving off an unfathomable feeling. Luo he coldly glanced at him. But at this moment, Mo Qingqing's silhouette appeared in the distance. Far behind her, there were a few silhouettes. At this moment, Mo Qingqing was still as beautiful as ever. However, she seemed a little haggard, causing people to involuntarily feel a sense of pity in their hearts. Qin Mo at her. Luo he faintly spoke, "To tell you the truth, this disciple of mine is still in a dilemma regarding her marriage. As her master, I have no choice but to seal her cultivation base and console her. I hope that she will be able to understand me in the future." As she spoke, Qin Wentian's perception was focused on his surroundings. When Mo Qingqing appeared, there were already a few powerful auras permeating this entire space, as though they were guarding against something. This caused Qin Wentian's heart to tremble as he felt an incomparable coldness in his heart. The Pill Emperor Hall had always been on guard. "For this son-in-law selection, since you've achieved so much, the first person I'll consider would naturally be you. But before that, you still have to pass the examination of my Pill Emperor Hall. Now, come with me, come to my side." Luo he faintly spoke. Qin Wentian hesitated, but he didn't move. Luo he furrowed her brows as she spoke, "Why? Are you unwilling? In that case, I can only choose someone else. Can I speak a few words with Miss Qingqing first, and ask for her opinion?" Qin Wentian couldn't help but ask when he saw that Luo he didn't allow Qingqing to come forward. "Sure, come over first." Luo he nodded her head. Qin Wentian didn't hesitate, he lifted his foot and walked towards Luo he. The people from the various transcendent powers all turned their gazes onto Qin Wentian. This scene caused the spectators to feel a strange atmosphere. Something was amiss, as though something was about to happen. Qin Wentian slowly walked towards Luo he. Luo he calmly stared at him, as though everything was normal. Finally, Qin Wentian arrived in front of Luo he. And in that instant, Luo He's palms abruptly stretched out, stretching out towards Qin Wentian. Peng, Qin Wentian stepped out as astral light erupted forth. His silhouette instantly vanished from sight, and at the place where he was standing earlier, vines snaked through the air. If Qin Wentian had been the slightest bit slower, he would have been completely bound by them. Luo He's palm was still stretched out in the air, staring at Qin Wentian, who had instantly retreated to the edge of the 99 steps. A cold light flickered in her eyes. You are indeed afraid. In that case, you must be Qin Wentian. As the sound of her voice faded, the people from the Chen clan, Wang clan, Star-Seizing Manor and the other transcendent powers all stood up, their gazes fixed on Qin Wentian as a terrifying aura enveloped Qin Wentian. Pang! Astral light erupted forth once more as Qin Wentian's silhouette vanished once more. And at the instant he vanished, a middle-aged man from the Chen clan appeared at the edge of the flight of steps he was standing on earlier. The terrifying flaming palm imprint grabbed onto nothing but air. As for Qin Wentian's silhouette, he executed stellar transposition consecutively, his speed so fast that the vision of the spectators couldn't even follow his movements. Not long after, he stood atop the demon sword, his eyes gleaming with an incomparably cold light. You are indeed Qin Wentian. Luo He was merely guessing earlier. She had never seen Qin Wentian appear before the Pill Emperor Hall. Given his frivolous personality, since he had already brought the demon sword to the Pill Emperor Hall, there was no way he wouldn't show up. However, even after Mo Qingqing appeared, Qin Wentian still hadn't appeared. Instead, it was this Si Yen who stated that he wanted to see Mo Qingqing. Hence, Luo He made a move to probe, and as expected, Si Yen immediately retreated. She immediately guessed that this Si Yen was none other than the Qin Wentian she had been waiting for all this while. The gazes of the spectators all landed on Qin Wentian, only to see the contours of his face twisting and contorting. An instant later, his countenance changed into that of an ice-cold, devilishly handsome countenance. Many in the crowd drew in a breath of cold air. It was actually him. The top ranker of the heavenly fate rankings, Qin Wentian. He had actually managed to sneak into the crowd to participate in the Pill Emperor Hall's son-in-law selection, killing Chen Lai and becoming the last person remaining. He had almost come into contact with Mo Qingqing, but Luo He's schemes were exceedingly deep. Mo Qingqing's beautiful eyes froze as she saw Qin Wentian's appearance. Tears welled up in her eyes as she sobbed in a low voice. She understood Qin Wentian. She knew that this young man was willing to sacrifice his life to protect Chu Tianjiao for the sake of her foster father, and even dared to kill Hua Xiaoyun for her sake. No matter what she said, Qin Wentian would never back down. Her heart was filled with pain. Because of her, she had implicated Qin Wentian. This pain caused her entire body to tremble uncontrollably. If anything happens to you, I won't be able to live alone. Mo Qingqing bit her lips as she inclined her head, staring at Qin Wentian with a resolute gaze. She knew that any words she could say would be useless in this situation. They could only live together, or die together. You are not allowed to die, and I won't allow you to die either. Qin Wentian stared at Mo Qingqing, his eyes filled with an unwavering resolution. Luo He, back then you promised me that if I defeated Zhang Chen, you wouldn't interfere in the matters between me and Qingqing. Now, not only did you break your promise, you even resorted to unscrupulous methods to make use of Qingqing in order to lure me out. This is the way the Pill Emperor Hall does things. Qin Wentian stared at the silhouettes approaching him from the side. Sword light flashed as he sliced open his palm, fresh blood dripping from it. Instantly, the demon's sword let out a mournful wail as its sword intent towered up to the heavens. Pill Emperor Hall. Today, if you don't hand Qingqing over, even if I die, I will make sure the Pill Emperor Hall collapses. Qin Wentian stepped down, his blood unceasingly dripping onto the demon's sword. His other hand transformed into the arm of a demonic beast as demonic qi towered up into the skies. With a howl of rage, he tried to pull out the demon's sword, but to no avail. He could only allow the demon sword to tilt to the side as his body landed on the ground, dragging the demon sword with him as he advanced step by step forward. The sword whistled through the air, the entire space was filled with the terrifying sound of a sword. A bone-piercing chill seeped into one's body, causing people to involuntarily shiver. Those who have something to do with this matter, step back now. Qin Wentian's voice rang out together with the sound of the sword. Everyone hurriedly retreated, not wanting to be caught in the crossfire. After they retreated, the experts from the Pale Emperor Hall instantly appeared, preparing to surround Qin Wentian's subordinates. The bodies of those experts trembled involuntarily. This sword intent was too terrifying, it had the power to destroy the heavens and earth. It was rumored that this demon sword hated the heavens for being too low. Qin Wentian fed it with his own blood and dragged it for 100,000 miles, spending a total of 3 months before he finally managed to erect it outside the Pale Emperor Hall. Initially, they didn't believe this rumor, thinking that it was an exaggeration. But now, when the sword might erupted forth, even an expert like Luo he felt a sense of suffocation. Not only that, the demon sword hadn't even gotten close to him yet. On the 99 steps of the Pale Emperor Hall, experts were as common as clouds. They were all waiting for Qin Wentian to walk into their trap. There were too many secrets on Qin Wentian's body. Leaving aside everything else, just the divine steel and the 9 ultimate arts of Grand Xia were already sufficient to cause the transcendent powers of Grand Xia to go crazy. Yet at this moment, not a single one of them dared to rush forward. They only stared at Qin Wentian as he advanced step by step. Every step he took was incomparably heavy, causing cracks to appear on the ground outside the Pale Emperor Hall. Qin Wentian dragged the demon sword as he advanced step by step until he reached the bottom of the 99 steps. Boom! Qin Wentian slowly stepped out, stepping onto the first step. Today, Qin Wentian dragged the demon sword along as he ascended the 99 steps, advancing step by step. All of you, leave. An expert from the great Solar Qin clan waved his hands to the experts behind him. They couldn't allow any of the younger generations to remain behind, or they might very well die under the demon sword. Chen Wang's countenance turned ashen. Back then, he was unexcelled in the heavenly fate rankings. Yet now, he actually had no choice but to retreat in the face of Qin Wentian. Not only for those from the great Solar Qin clan, those from the transcendent powers all ordered the weaker ones to leave and enter the Pale Emperor Hall. As for the stronger ones, they surrounded Qin Wentian in all directions, wanting to kill him. Since you brought the demon sword here today, you can stay here forever. Luo He's countenance was ice-cold as she stared at Qin Wentian who was slowly ascending the steps. Qin Wentian inclined his head, his cold eyes sweeping over to Luo He as he coldly spoke, "If the Pale Emperor Hall doesn't collapse, I won't leave here today. Die." As the sound of his voice faded, a boundless sword might blasted towards Luo He. In an instant, Luo He's countenance stiffened. Numerous towering ancient trees manifested around her, enveloping her within. The ancient trees were destroyed and reborn, growing and multiplying endlessly. Atop the towering Pale Emperor Hall, numerous tyrannical silhouettes appeared. They stood with their hands clasped behind their backs, their eyes gleaming with a divine light, exuding an unexcelled aura as they stared at the young man wielding the sword. In the surroundings, there were also many experts spectating from the shadows. Today, for the sake of Mo Qincheng, the first ranker of the heavenly fate rankings, Qin Wentian, with a cultivation base at the first level of Heavenly Dipper, had barged into the Pale Emperor Hall alone, declaring that if the Pale Emperor Hall didn't collapse, he wouldn't leave. Such lofty sentiments, even if he died here today, his name would be imprinted in Grand Xia. In the air, amidst the churning clouds, several silhouettes could be seen standing there. One of them was clad in tattered robes, casually standing there, as though he was the ruler of this world. As for the other, he lay lazily in the clouds, his cloudy eyes staring downwards, as though he was a sadistic sadist. Dragging his sword for 100,000 miles, barging into the Pill Emperor Hall alone, the experts gathered outside the Pill Emperor Hall, whose blood would dye the clouds red. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.